a very different answer. And Europe might be wondering this morning why they're being thrown into the same bucket as the Chinese. What explanation can you give them?
Europe does
they
not
took advantage of us
treat
too.
our products fairly. They do not treat our companies fairly. They treat themselves incredibly well to the detriment of the United States of America, right? It is time for them to treat us fairly, and that is the point. This is not, it's not...
Like, this is retarded. Like, do you hear this guy is like a retard? Like, what is this conversation? What am I listening to? Is this like Bloomberg Teletubbies edition? Like, what am I listening to? This is not like a real conversation for people interested in economics or finance. This is just some fucking retard giving me a Twitter slogan. I could talk to my mom and get these answers. Can I get anything from my presidential appointed, Senate approved and confirmed leader of the fucking secretary of the fucking Commerce Department, the guy in charge of the fucking talks? Can you tell me something substantive rather than the same talking points over and over again about how everybody takes us for a fucking ride on trade? Please.
Free and fair trade. Their tariffs are higher. The non-tariff trade.
Please.
Incredible. Like, I'd ask you, why don't they take our beef? Why don't they take our agricultural products? Why? Because they don't want them, because they want to make the money themselves. Why is it okay for every other country to feel this way, and it's not okay for America? I tell you why. Because we were the world.
Is the fucking
Like, imagine what you're saying over again. Literally speaking to American exceptionalism. Why is every other country like blah 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 and only America, only America, only motherfucker? You know that we're like, no offense to my, and it's early, so I know there's a lot of Europeans in here, okay? So tune out for a second. You know we're like the best country in the world, right? We have the biggest fucking economy, we've got the most innovation, we've got the biggest fucking army, we've had an empire, okay, that spanned basically the globe for like 100 fucking years. Why do you keep saying, why is it only America? Why is it only America that's doing like clearly we're doing something right? No? Well, clearly something is working. So what are we going back to? What are we aiming for here? We used to only make all of our money doing tariffs. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, before we had any fucking influence on the rest of the world whatsoever. Like, what do you want to go back to? What?
And Donald Trump has said our $36 trillion deficit, our $1.2 trillion trade deficit, $1.2 trillion. We buy other people's things.
Stop saying these numbers together. A trade deficit, which is just the difference that we buy and sell from other people, has nothing to do with our debt or our budget deficit. These are all different numbers.
More than we sell them ours. It's got to be rebalanced. It's a national emergency. Let's fix America, and we can.
Mr. Secretary, for you it's beef, for the president I know it's Ford and Berlin's, but there are products that Europe takes, things like LNG, things like Microsoft services. Do you want to see balanced trade product by product?
No. It's not product by product. It's a big macro issue, okay? Fairness comes when one decides that they can stop, they can't get away with it any longer. So let's
get away with what? Give me 3 particular things. Somebody should ask for a fucking example. This is why don't we do any examples anymore? When you write essays in 2nd grade, doesn't your teacher ask you to cite the text? Give me some examples. Give an example. What are 3 things that you want to see some country change in regards to their trade? What did we, list of tariffs, White House. Fuck, where is it? Like, don't we have it? Was it like 90% on fucking Serbia? Like, what does Serbia need to change?
make a great deal with the United States of America, okay? They've got core issues. They have a VAT tax
Like
of 20%.
VAT applies to everybody. What is VAT? Why are you citing that? Unless it's only applied to foreign producers, why are you citing that? I understand you're an American and we don't have that, but you don't have to be a retard. Just kidding.
Europe has 21%. I mean, so when our goods are sold there, we pay 21%. They say everybody pays that. And then they use that money to beat us down in other ways.
What? You have to say how. What are you talking about?
that. And then
This is a quick thing. Okay, value-added tax for people who don't know in chat. Okay, so in the United States, we use something called a sales tax. What that means is that when a product, an end-stage product, is sold to a consumer, we pay a sales tax on it. Not federally, but usually by state, you'll pay a sales tax. A VAT, a value-added tax, means that at every stage of production where value is being added to something, you pay a tax, I believe, on the appreciation of the value. So if I buy some steel for $1, and then I buy some pants for $1, and then I make steel-plated pants, and I sell those, and now I can like sell those to the next stage for $5, then I would pay a value-added tax on the $3 of appreciation from the difference in between what I sell the intermediate good for versus what I bought the intermediate goods for. If that makes sense, right? I believe this is a value-added tax, but this applies to everybody. That's not an unfair. That shouldn't make somebody more competitive or less competitive. Like everybody pays a value-added tax. Now, unless there's a specific exemption or something, but.
when our goods are sold there, we pay 21%. They say everybody pays that. And then they use that money to beat us down in other ways. I mean, come on.
Other ways how?
We need to have...
Why are you saying come on? Like you're a random dipshit off the street. Come on. No, you should have an actual fucking argument. Bro, I just want to go to college and I want to write all my essays like MAGA. Why did the conquistadors do what they did to the Aztecs or the natives or whatever? And it's like, come on, you saw what they were doing. It was obvious how unfair they were being. And they've been taking advantage of all this land and not doing anything with it. Come on, what are you thinking?
Fair trade, macro, not product by product. But I think that the way Donald Trump looks at it is country by country. And what's going to happen is you're going to...
That's another lie, to be clear. Nothing was looked at country by country. There was a broad, made for and consumed by retards formula that was just broadly applied to every country on the planet that basically said, the larger our trade deficit, the more you must be tariffing us. Because the only way we could ever have a trade deficit with somebody is if they're unfairly tariffing us. That's it.
See domestic production grow. You're going to see interest rates come down in America. You're going to see growth in America, great jobs in America. Robotics is going to...
Sorry, are you seriously saying if he started going into deep economic theory that anyone would care or listen? It's Bloomberg Business! Yeah, this is the Bloomberg channel. It's for business. I'm not saying he has to go deep into econ theory, but he has to say something more than what I would expect to hear on fucking OANN or Newsmax. Yes, he should say something.
Going to come to America. It's going to replace cheap labor overseas. Robots can make things. And you know what the job there's going to be? Mechanics who fix robots. Kind of like a high-end BMW. Robots are going to need to be...
Adam, what's your point? The future looks bright.
Oh, sorry. I opened a PBD video and it started playing. Holy shit.
Fixed, and those jobs are going to be high-paying jobs, and they're going to be here. We're tired of them being overseas.
For some countries, there's the 10% base, and that's the only levy that they were hit with yesterday. I'm thinking of the United Kingdom. I think of Australia. But those countries have a trade surplus with the United States. So why?
Yeah, why blanket 10%? Why are you punishing the people that we have a surplus? Why aren't you at least incentivizing those countries? What the fuck?
The tariff on.
Well, you see. How does he answer this one?
That's the only levy that they were hit with yesterday. I'm thinking of the United Kingdom. I think of Australia. But those countries have a trade surplus with the United States. So why put the tariff on?
Ooh. Technically, she misspoke. We have a trade surplus with them. They have a trade deficit with us. Yikes. Big yikes, I think, right?
Surplus with the United States. So why put the tariff on?
Well, I think the president understands that all of these countries, even if they have a trade surplus, if you dig into it, like, for instance, the UK...
Even the countries that we have a trade surplus with? Even they're taking advantage of us? Bro, we're like the retarded kid in school. What in the fuck are you talking about? He's really about to say this? Literally everybody's taking advantage of us? Every single country is my enemy. What the fuck? Wait, what?
That all of these countries, even if they have a trade surplus, if you dig into it, like, for instance, the UK, their trade surplus counts that they have this London Metals Exchange, and so gold and silver bullion going in counts. I mean, come on, that doesn't really count. So, and
Wait, why not? Wait, what? What? So what are the only things that count?
Australia, which is a wonderful partner of ours, they buy a lot of our planes, right? And if you buy our commodity gas, I mean, that's really what you need, not really what we need to sell you. It's not the same.
What? What? Like, imagine going to the store and you like buy 10 things, and the clerk who's like, you know, Koner is like glaring at you, and you're like, the fuck, bro? And you're like, I see you're buying a lot of Hershey bars today. And it's like, yeah, I want some Hershey bars, motherfucker. What's wrong with you? That's not really what I wanted to sell you. Okay, well, they're for sale. You're making money, aren't you? Like, what are we even saying here? Can please, media, staffers, young people, anybody that listens to me, I don't care. We need to make fun of these people. Like, even if you don't get any more interviews with them, you need to like laugh a little and say like, hey, isn't that kind of fucking retarded though, bro? Like, isn't what you just said like kind of really fucking retarded? Like, if you were on a message and you typed this, wouldn't everybody make fun of you for how fucking retarded your comment was? Like, what do you mean we don't really want to sell you that thing? Give it back. Like, give us back our natural gas. Stop buying that. Stop it.
I think the president understands that all of these countries, even if they have a trade surplus, if you dig into it, like for instance, the UK, their trade surplus counts that they have this London Metals Exchange, and so gold and silver bullion going in counts. I mean, come on, that doesn't really count. So, and Australia, which is a wonderful partner of ours, they buy a lot of our planes, right? And if you buy our commodity gas, I mean, that's really what you need, not really what we need to sell you. It's not the same. So the president...
I'm sorry. This is just the funniest statement I've ever heard in my entire life. Is there some econ or finance concept that I just don't understand? There's a mechanism, by the way. This gets really deep into finance and econ. Okay. But if there's a particular thing that you don't want to sell, there is a mechanism by which you can make it so that you do want to sell it. Okay. And it's called price. P-R-I-C-E. Price. Right? You can make it go up if you really don't want to sell a thing, or if you would only want to sell it at a higher total like amount of money you would earn, you just raise the price on it. I don't know what the fuck this is supposed to mean.
A lot of our planes, right? And if you buy our commodity gas, I mean, that's really what you need, not really what we need to sell you. It's not.
What do we need to sell? Then that should have been an extra. What do we need to sell Australia? What should people be buying from us? Can you tell us? Teslas. I mean, what we really need to sell are more Teslas. Like, I thought the U.S. being an energy exporter was supposed to be like a thing we champion. I thought it was a good thing. Drill, baby, drill, right?
Not the same.
We need to sell you shares of Newsmax and Truth Social.
I mean, that's really what you need, not really what we need to sell you.
I'm so sorry.
Not the same. So the president decided, why don't we have a baseline of 10%? Okay, to really understand.
How is that even supposed to help? How does a baseline of 10%? How does that make them buy what we want them to buy? What does that even mean? What does that even mean? These things have no connection in reality to each other. They have no connection whatsoever.
Understand that everybody needs our economy. Our economy is the magnet of the world.
Just not the natural gas part of it. Not the LNG part. What does the L stand for? Liquefied natural gas. Okay. It's okay.
Everybody needs our economy. Our economy is the magnet of the world. Everybody needs our economy. Let's them pay coming in, and let's change that deficit of $1.2 trillion, and let's make America's economy grow. And let's balance that out. Let's
shit
first. and then we'll go readdress the rest of the world. But we need to fix our trade deficit. $1.2 trillion. It's unbelievable why we don't have those jobs and the rest of the world does.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told me last night this is a ceiling. Potentially we can see a different floor. Are you prepared to negotiate all of these rates? Is this truly the start of a negotiation?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, it's a start of a rebalancing of the way the
start
world
of something.
works. I agree with the secretary that our view is that the only way these rates are going up is if countries decide to retaliate. But why would you retaliate against your biggest client? Your biggest client says, I want to reorder things. I mean, the United States of America is the largest client in the world. And yes, of course, the countries are going to talk to us, but they talk too casually. They always talk.
Think about what he's saying right here. Think about how fucking stupid what he's saying. He's saying, like, in one breath, he's saying they have to work with us. We're their biggest client. What is he talking about? He's talking about soft power. Why are we the biggest client? It's because we import a whole bunch of fucking shit. What is the point of your tariff? Your point of your tariffs is to reduce what you import. And you're talking about manufacturing everything domestically, which reduces your size as a client. So why the fuck would they work with you? The whole point of your policies is to no longer be a large client. You don't want to buy shit from them anymore. You're giving away all your soft power, and then in the next breath mentioning how important your soft power is to negotiate with them. It doesn't make any sense.
Talk about their tariff rates. I mean, it's like they say, oh, I'm going to cut my tariff rate. You think the reason we don't sell a car is because Europe charges a 10% tariff and we were only charging 2.5%? That was outrageous. But the key is they have all these rules. Like one of my favorites is the Koreans, when we made a deal with
Rules are things that they're not qualified. None of these people are qualified. Rules exist, and these are things that are negotiated with or about or around when you enter a trade agreement. That's why trade agreements are so complicated. It's because you hammer out what all of the rules of your trade are supposed to be. Yes.
rules. Like one of my favorites is the Koreans. When we made a deal with them in 2012, we took their car.
Also, just as a quick random thing, I think, assuming, because I've been seeing a bunch of random comments in chat over the past few days, and I can't tell if this is actually true or not. If it is the case that your intrastate commerce in Canada is not regulated, or rather that like your provinces can like tariff other provinces inside Canada, that sounds fucking wild. What the fuck? You guys seem crazy up there. But anyway, sorry. Okay.
The 10% tariff, and we were only charging 2.5%. That was outrageous. But the key is they have all these rules. Like one of my favorites is the Koreans. When we made a deal with them in 2012, we took their cars, right? Kia and Hyundai, and we were going to sell agricultural products to them, right? And when McDonald's went to send in French fries, they wouldn't let them go in because we couldn't prove the origin of the potato. I mean, you don't understand the scale and depth of...
Well, what's the source of the rule? Like, okay, I'm not... Like, what's the source of the rule? Like, there's probably a reason why this rule exists. I doubt it's a random... Or it could be random and arbitrary, which case go to the WTO and have it removed. Because random bullshit rules do occur. They do happen. And people put random bullshit rules sometimes literally just to fuck your trade over, right? The only case that we ever looked into with any amount of specificity, it was for a waste of time debate with Michael Brooks, who was funnier than he was intelligent. But it had to do with Canada, I think, tried to fuck over a U.S. company when it came to, I think, tire manufacturing. Canada took some weird environmental regulation that they implemented that literally only impacted a single manufacturing company, and it was just the American one. Probably, based on the totality of what I saw, it seemed like it was probably done just to fuck over the American car company. It wasn't like an important environmental regulation. It was just to fuck over that one car company. Countries do this, but you fight over this in the WTO, or you do this as part of a trade negotiation.
Of how they keep our products out. And Donald Trump has said, I've had enough. We are going to be treated better. America is going to be treated better. And that starts today.
Mr. Secretary, why exactly wasn't Russia on that list yesterday?
Because we have sanctions against Russia, North Korea, Belarus, and Cuba. And so we're not supposed to be trading with them.
Thanks for clearing that up. The additional question that other people had too about
Then the next question that he should have asked, just to get it on the record. Oh, okay. So let's say that the Ukraine-Russia war ends or whatever. If sanctions go away on Russia, will there be tariffs in place on Russia? You should get that on the record. I feel like that's important to have on the record. But
how Mexico and Canada, they were also noticeably absent. Why were they absent?
Well, they are operating under a rule that was set on for fentanyl, right? That they needed to close the border and stop fentanyl. And what that rule is that USMCA, right, the major trading is exempt, right? And the other products that they do have a 25% tariff. When that is resolved, so we're not going to double count it. That's just not the way it
they
works.
put tariffs on Iran who have sanctions? Or do we sanction the entirety of the country? Because I think there might be like limited sanctions, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
Works. When that's resolved, they will fall into a model like this. But I think USMCA, in the order, USMCA continues to be exempted. So car parts, for instance, don't come with a tariff. If they end up being finished in American
Fuck, man.
building your car in America and you're getting parts from Canada and Mexico, that's fine. The American cars still come with no tariff.
Okay, that's helpful. The additional question we had on just a few numbers, because we're all trying to make sense of this in real time, and you've got the numbers. What's the tariff on China now? The complete tariff, including everything. What is that number now?
Well, there was a 20% tariff because they continue to make the ingredients for fentanyl and send them out, right? And those ingredients have the highest subsidy rate.
Number now.
Well, there was a 20% tariff because they continue to make the ingredients for fentanyl and send them out, right? And those ingredients have the highest subsidy rate in China, meaning the Chinese government is paying these factories to make these goods, the ingredients for fentanyl, which is killing Americans.
With Asana, AI teammates can help level up your goals by connecting them to relevant projects, so every team knows their role in the bigger picture. Asana, the #1 AI work management platform. Try for free today at asana.com.
Right? So
Yes.
Donald Trump put a 20% tariff on that, and now the regular trade deficit number.
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know. Do we use fentanyl in the United States for like in hospitals, or are there other opioids that we use for patients? I don't actually know the answer to that. Yes, we do. Number one, and then number two is, are the precursors for fentanyl? Precursors are just the molecules and stuff you have that you combine or synthesize to make a drug, right? Are the precursors that used for other things as well, or?
Right, the analysis by the Council of Economic Advisors and the United States Trade Representative, we have a 34% tariff, so it's 54%. But when they stop making the ingredients for fentanyl,
Canada or China has to stop making they shut down all painkiller opioid production in their country. That's all they have to do. Okay, bro.
I want to point out in 2019, President Xi told President Trump that he would put the death penalty on anyone who made fentanyl. And now he's actually subsidizing them.
He said he would put the death penalty on people who manufacture painkillers, opiate-based painkillers in China. That's
just so wrong that Donald Trump is just.
Destiny's done such a good job on crying harder. Good job, buddy. Yeah, bro, epic. Crashing this economy with no survivors, bro. You're owning the libs right now. How are Destiny's lasers killing anything? You shouldn't be made with lasers. You should be using turrets 100%. Because all these things have huge resists to lasers. But Kane was in chat spamming for like 7 fucking days that you can't possibly do it with lasers, so I made a laser ship to spite him. I should redesign their ship though now.
He's not going to stand for it, and he's got to hit them with the only thing he can
Secretary
hit them
Lutnick,
with, which is economic.
You know what would be fucking funny as fuck? Is there a world where, because we domestically manufacture all of our fentanyl, that all of a sudden there's like even more people that get hooked on it in the United States because it's like easier to get here? I don't know.
China as well. On China as well, what about the 301 tariffs that were put in place under Trump 1.0 and then carried on to the Biden administration? That's about 25%. Are those still in place? Do they get added to this cumulative number?
They do indeed, but those are on specific product segments, and those still are as well. Autos are not.
So we're talking about 79. So we're talking about 79% for some imports cumulative. We're talking about a 79% tariff from China. Is that accurate?
On certain products, that could be true. Sure, but they've got to stop.
The UAE.
All they have to have is a phone call. All they have to have is a phone call from President Xi to President Trump saying, I'm going to end fentanyl production that's killing Americans, and it drops 20%. I mean, that's a pretty inexpensive phone call, but you have
He's got to get on the phone. Oh, you got to get on the phone, bro. Pick up the phone. Make a phone. He loves phone calls. Just get on the phone, bro. Make that phone call. Please call him. He loves phone calls. This guy's the phone call president. Call him.
Xi to President Trump saying, I'm going to end fentanyl production that's killing Americans, and it drops 20%. I mean, that's a pretty inexpensive phone call, but you have to make the decision. You got to stop killing Americans. And so far, they haven't made that decision. Shocking, but they haven't made that decision. And you really got to think about that for a minute. Think about that for a minute. A phone call would save them 20% on all their products, but they'd have to stop making the ingredients of fentanyl, and they refuse. Outrageous.
Has your counterpart reached out to set up that phone call between President Trump and Xi Jinping?
Xi Jinping.
President Trump and President Xi, they have.
Is this real? Newsmax team and Rudy Giuliani get to ring the opening bell on a day when Trump's tariffs crater the stock market. Is this the New York Stock Exchange? They're ringing the bell? Why? Why the fuck are they even allowed in here? Why is Giuliani allowed here? What the fuck? This guy's humiliated, ashamed. I don't know if a man... There are not many men in politics that have fallen from a height as high as Giuliani to as low as whatever the fuck he is now. Did Giuliani get formally disbarred? He is. Oh, disbarred in D.C. That, which means it'll probably carry over to other things, right? Because generally when you get disbarred in one area, I think you can start getting disbarred in others. Fucking unbelievable.
Their own way. They're not going to be. When that phone call gets made, I don't think they're asking me to set it up. I think that's above me.
Bro, that Newsmax stock, too. Oh, is it down from the IPO now? It did fall all the way down. Oh, never mind. Okay. IPO'd for, on the first day, 83.51. The next day, it was 233, but now it's down. This is a cable channel now? Dude, I don't watch cable at all. Holy shit. What do we got from Newsmax? A good conservative media outlet. Newsmax CEO, ready, rings New York Stock Exchange, opening bell. Financial Times, Newsmax's rise is credible. Profits could boom. Top Russian official in D.C. for talks on better ties. U.S. seeks commitment of 5% defense spending to NATO allies. Trump to Senate deficit hawks. I have your back. Trump RFK Jr. champion radical transparency to combat food toxins. Under Patel, FBI record for job applications. Details of Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. Will hold activist judges accountable. Commerce Secretary, the world has exploited the U.S. FCC's car agency to recommit to public interest. Dershowitz, Iran must capitulate. Wow. John Brown, Trump championing fair trade. Thank you. Unemployment claims fall amid strong job market. Awesome. Trump declares tariff operation over, touts optimism. Related, sanctioned Russia, left off Trump's tariff lists. FBI nabs top MS-13 gang leader. Gold ad. NSC staffers fired in signal chat fallout. Rogan to Doge. You need to investigate how Snow White cost $250 million. It was Liberation Day at the White House on Wednesday. Oh, let's listen to them read it to us.
Sure, there's a tool for every job. But when it comes to PDFs and e-signatures, Adobe Acrobat is the only
think it's
tool you
AI
need
or
for
a
any
real reader?
PDF job. It's the all-in-one, get-it-done solution for editing your PDFs, sharing them, even getting them signed. Lots of jobs, one tool. Acrobat's got it. Try it today.
Details of Trump's Liberation Day tariffs.
Wow.
It was
AI.
Liberation Day at the White House on Wednesday as President Donald Trump announced a sweeping round of tariffs during a speech in the
Using his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, higher individualized reciprocal tariffs on countries with which the U.S. has the largest trade deficits. The tariffs will remain in effect until Trump determines the threat posed by the trade deficit and underlying non-reciprocal treatment is satisfied, resolved, or mitigated. Canada and Mexico are exempted because both countries are subject to 25% tariffs imposed last month to pressure them to do more to prevent fentanyl trafficking and illegal immigration. If you read shit like this all day, it's no wonder that you're like fucking brainwashed. Those NSC staffers are the ones that Laura Loomer got fired. Yeah, apparently she went to some building, and then 3 people got fired. The firings came after Laura Loomer, the far-right activist who once claimed 9/11 was an inside job, urged President Donald Trump during a Wednesday meeting to get rid of several members of his National Security Council staff, including his principal deputy national security advisor, claiming that they are disloyal. One of the sources said the firings were a direct result of the meeting with Loomer. How do you rebut the short-term pain for long-term gain cope regarding the tariffs? There is no long-term gain. Can you clarify the Asmongold whooping clip? His subreddit is molding? I don't care that they're molding. For him to be here laughing at people who are literally getting laid off and fired from their jobs for no reason other than for Trump being cruel or Republicans being insane, like it's unhinged. It's crazy. It's an insane lack of empathy on top of stupidity. But
Mr. Secretary, does that tell you something about maybe the leverage you think you have, perhaps you don't have, over the Chinese? The fact that they aren't reaching out, they aren't doing those things, despite the fact you've put tariffs up as much as you have?
Well, we'll see. Remember, these tariffs are just going into place. And, you know, I think they will have that phone call, and they will have lots of conversation together. I think, for me, the greatest thing for me is that Donald Trump is sitting behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, and he is the greatest deal maker, and he will decide.
what an unbelievable dick suck. It's actually insane that you can survive off of a diet exclusively of Trump cum.
I think they will have that phone call, and they will have lots of conversation together. I think, for me, the greatest thing for me is that Donald Trump is sitting behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, and he is the greatest deal maker, and he will decide how he wants to play his hand. But the way he's played his hand now is, he's been talking about this for 35 years. He wants to reorder trade, to have the world stop exploiting us, to bring the factories back, to bring employment back. You know, no one thought about when NAFTA, which he called yesterday the worst trade deal ever, what NAFTA did, it gave Canada and Mexico sort of the economic right to be a state of the United States without paying federal tax and without respecting the Constitution.
We were the largest market, I believe, in the world. I think NAFTA and then U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement, that was the largest, I think, shared market or whatever trade agreement, I think, in the world involving economies, but whatever.
But you could build in Mexico and drive to Texas and build in Canada and just drive across the border. It was all fine and no, economically equal to being Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah.
And so what happened is our manufacturing left America and put those Americans out of jobs. And Donald Trump wants to bring back factories, bring back those jobs, and they can come back. $5 trillion worth of commitments to bring back those jobs is unbelievably impressive. And that's what Donald Trump is capable of.
Also impressive is the sell-off this morning. And a big question the market's asking, how much pain you're willing to tolerate. The S&P's down by 3.7%. The dollar's being sold quite aggressively. Against the euro, we're seeing one of the biggest moves we've seen in the last decade. Mr. Secretary, how much pain are you willing to tolerate? How much market pain are you willing to tolerate?
Infinite.
Donald Trump is focused on the economic pain that the United States of America has suffered over decades.
Oh, you're not going to answer
Since
any
NAFTA,
fucking questions at all?
90,000
Okay.
factories,
That's cool too.
not jobs, factories, 5 million high-paying jobs gone overseas. He's focused on the U.S. worker and the U.S. economy. And what's going to happen is people are going to realize it is the great American economy that is the winner here. And anyone who doubts it, and anybody who shorts Donald Trump, anybody who doubts the strength and the power of the American economy is making a foolish bet. Sure, importers are going to have a tough time figuring out what to do because they went and found the cheapest production in the world. It's time to bring that production home, to have the smart, amazing people who run American companies figure it out, bring robotics back to America. And I would say that United States domestic growth is going to have the greatest resurgence ever under Donald Trump, and that's what he has set in motion yesterday.
You'll accept it takes time to engineer a supply-side response, though, sir. And in the meantime, you can see bad things happen. Do you accept that?
No.
Well, what I can accept, of course, it takes time to build factories, but companies understand how to do it. They will do it. The United States of America is the greatest economy in the world. People have to do business with it. The rest of the world will bring down.
Remember, every time he says stuff like that, what he's really doing is he's taking for granted U.S. soft power. When he says things like, well, why can we get away with being completely fucking unhinged? That's because of the advantage, unearned advantage for this administration, that America has in being such a dominating economy and having so much military and diplomatic and economic influence around the world. That's why you can get away with being unhinged for a bit. So he keeps making these references to, well, we can do this because of what is really soft power without actually saying it. And then you're suiciding our soft power, but...
on their trade barriers, and you'll see a great resurgence in our ability to sell agriculture overseas. You'll see factories being built here, and that factory production will be faster. So sure, there will be a rebalancing of those who make things in cheap labor markets, figuring out how to make them here, but ultimately speaking, and I think in much less time than you think, the world will reorder itself, will figure it out, and the United States growth rate will turbocharge compared to the rest of the world. We've been too close to them because we've been, our presidents have been presidents of the world. And Donald Trump ran on the policy that he was going to be the president of the United States, of the workers of the United States, and he was going to place American workers first. And that's what he did yesterday, and that's what everybody's feeling. Those workers have been disrespected, and now they're going to be respected.
Mr. Secretary, just a final question, if we may. Any calls scheduled for today with the Europeans?
Yeah.
Do those negotiations
Any phone
start this
calls?
morning immediately? Can you give us a sense of things?
No. We're waiting.
Absolutely. Our teams are talking to all the great trading partners today.
Oh, everyone is being talked to. Never mind. All of them. Okay, that's good.
And we are available for our great trading partners every day. It is time for them to do deep soul searching of how they treat us poorly and how to make it right. It is time for them to do that. That is going to be difficult for them because they've taken advantage of us for so long. They should just be disappointed that the free ride is over. It's time for them to be realistic and to change the way they look at the United States of America. And I think that's going to happen starting today.
Palmer Luckey, CEO of Anduril, crashing out on Twitter, saying tariffs aren't protectionist, actually. No, reciprocal tariffs are the opposite. The whole point is to encourage free trade rather than lopsided, quote-unquote, free trade we currently have with so many countries. Good one. Oh, he follows me. He said, I'm a technology enthusiast, so I already know he's retarded. That's good.
When you look at
Every middle manager and team lead in the world is now pointing to software engineers that have been complaining about managers forever, and now all the middle managers, all the team leaders are like, see, this is what I was talking about. You see how fucking annoying these guys are? See? I'm gonna get a Red Bull while I can still afford them. If you want the real take from Bloomberg, go to their live stream and rewind an hour and 27 minutes.
Severe way.
So in that uncertain environment, and with payrolls data in hand that we'll get tomorrow, Chairman Powell...
Except the word wasn't shoot.
Oh.
With the companies that source a lot of their materials in Asia being hit the worst, Apple, Nike, two prime examples there. Apple has the biggest weighting in the S&P 500, and Apple shares right now, they are down 8.1%. Nike shares down close to 10%. And we have a quote, Alex and Paul, from the CEO of RH. That's Restoration Hardware. The tariff news has sent their stock. Right now, RH is down over 40%.
Is a recession coming? Yes, probably, but it depends. I don't even know how we'll field this because everything is so unique and crazy and weird right now. Like, I imagine we'll get 2 quarters of GDP contraction, but I think people are kind of searching for different ways to explain recessions right now because it's possible, I guess, you can have 2 quarters of GDP retraction, but it doesn't necessarily feel that bad, so who knows.
The CEO, Gary Friedman, said in response, "Oh, shoot."
No, you're kidding.
Except the word wasn't shoot.
Oh.
Oh, you're serious.
Anyway, I'm not going to say it. This is a family program. We check the markets for you all day long right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that's your Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right,
Remember?
thanks.
Oh, fudge.
Yes.
From Christmas Story.
Did you guys ever watch Battlestar Galactica, the remake? Nerd alert. Nope.
Wow.
Okay, great.
Where are you going with this?
I saw the original.
Well, they had it was frack. Was the curse word.
I see.
Yes, guys, I like board games, Catan, and Battlestar Galactica. You're welcome. Okay. John Tucker, thanks a lot. Alex Steeler alongside Paul Sweeney. I'm getting some fist bumps in the control room, so, I mean, there's...
All I can say is that there's a good chance that Biden and Kamala probably would have done the same, right? Isn't that what Hassan said? All the lefties said they probably would have done the exact same, is what we're seeing right now. You know what hurts the most? I'm not shit-talking him in particular. He's just my example, okay? But I love him, and I appreciate the fact that he comes to my stream and chat, so fuck you guys that hate him too much, okay? But I know for a fact that if I brought Richard Hanania or any person that I, have, some respect for and asked them, okay, what about now? Do you regret voting for Trump? Okay, it's bad now, but...
Something there. All right, if there's one column you read in the morning and you only have time for one, the one you got to read is by John Authors, Bloomberg opinion columnist. I've been following his work for decades, ever since he was at the FT and then here, and he really has a definitive take on what you see and what you take.
Wait, is this a troll wiki? I thought Rational Wiki went far left or far right. Oh no, that might be the neo-Nazi one. I don't remember. Do I regret not voting in November? Should I have voted for Harris? Oh, hell no. Sure, Harris probably wouldn't have pointlessly blown up the economy in the first 90 days or wrecked our relationship with Canada, but she also wouldn't have sealed the border or kicked DEI to the curb like Trump has. If anything, she would have accelerated the spread of the woke poison throughout the federal government. And while we wouldn't have a serial liar and exaggerator in the White House, we would have a cackling cringe mediocrity who owed her advancement largely to DEI and racial blackmail. He says as he champions the Nepo baby, Donald Trump. New gun. Shoots 9mm, takes Glock mags. Looks like ass. Don't care.
And he also sort of collates all the research and pulls out the most relevant parts to create a story. And luckily, he's right here in the studio and joins us. John,
hi,
how hard was it? First of all, were you up all night?
No, I was. I mean, I did bump into a few cleaners and stuff on my way out.
Damn. What are the mic arms that they're using here that have fucking lights on them? What the fuck? Does that mean it's live? Is it hooked into something? Or is it just like always glowing? It's badass.
To the office last night, but I was out before midnight.
But I heard that
midnight.
David Gura, people that we know and respect, they were here late last night working, cranking it out.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
because you couldn't do anything until you saw the announcement, and then you had to get the research in to sort of create the story behind all of it.
But I did explain to him that we were in the office late enough that Bloomberg would pay for a cab home.
Oh, yeah.
I cost the Bloomberg a little bit of money there by
Have you done any more research on your AR? No, I'm just waiting for the one to become available. That's it.
breaking them into that secret, but it's yes.
But you get, but it totally is worth it.
Yes.
Okay, so you kind of laid the land last night. Tell me about your column, and then how are you going to be walking it forward today?
Okay, the column is channeling John McEnroe, who was brought up only about a mile away from Donald Trump in Queens.
Yep.
You cannot be serious. Basically, the biggest point that you can make lots of general arguments about what the U.S. tariffs have been, but the main point about them is that they're not serious. That this is
it's
ridiculous.
A joke.
They are not reciprocal.
It's just It's just unhinged. It's. Everybody was so wrong. I was even wrong. Remember when, like, 10 years ago? Well, no. Things change over time. So you could have been correct or wrong in the past, but correct now. Remember how, like, how many years ago was I finally starting to say more, actually, Twitter is real life. Like, I actually feel like Twitter is becoming real life. I think the first big indicator I had of this was in 2020 when Bernie had to start making formal disavowals of the Bernie bros on Twitter. I think that was the first time I was like, ooh, this is like, these people are actually starting to impact, you know, like lawmakers or people running for the primaries, like statements they're having to make now. And then real life has just become increasingly more like the online unhinged environment. And it's just deeply unserious. But the people are actually like in control of things. So it's deeply unserious, but the people are very real and very serious. It's
the sensible definition of the term. They are simply a retaliation against any country that happens to sell more stuff
than we buy from them
than the US sells to it.
Yep.
They don't actually have anything to do with trade barriers
Correct.
that are put up, and they're based on a rather childish
arbitrary
view
formula.
That if you run a trade deficit with anyone,
you must have tariffs.
That means you're being exploited by them. That it can only be because they're doing something unfair rather than because
they have some kind of comparative advantage, might be a word we would use, or other types of advantages in their country that lend towards manufacturing certain goods. But sorry, he's explaining it.
They have some comparative advantage, a concept that's been around for about 200 years. That means that they can make something cheaper than you can, and
for
if you buy
a variety
it
of
from them,
reasons.
you can then go and invest in something better yourself.
Oh, what's that? Oh my God! There's a version of this called the broken windows fallacy, where somebody goes into a city and they're like, "Oh my God! I just discovered a big econ hack. If I break a window, technically this is a good economic transaction, right? Because now the window maker can make money by creating more windows. The laborer gets money by installing them. The intermediate producers of glass make money by selling them. But the reason why it's the broken window fallacy and not the broken window paradox or not the broken window law is because the person that's buying the new window can't spend that money elsewhere, which is a hidden cost to the increase of certain goods or services, is when you're spending more on things that you need, you have less money to spend on other things that you might want.
So the prime problem with the rollout is that it's not serious. It's very difficult to negotiate
with unserious yeah, because it's not like what are we supposed to do? Stop selling you shit? Like what is our plan here? How do we escape these tariffs?
Because the reason you are being tariffed is
it's
because
fake.
you happen to have a trade surplus with the US. So, for example, if you're Bangladesh, you kind of would have a big trade surplus with the US because you're a very poor
you don't have anything to buy. You have no money.
And you have people who are prepared to work for very little money and will make your exports appealing. It's not clear to me what you're supposed to do about this sudden apparition of 30-40% tariffs on you from the US. In terms of where we're going next, plainly there is an expectation that there will now be negotiations, that this cries out as an opening point for negotiation.
Also, just as a heads up, and he might say it, but I don't care if he does, okay? Just as a heads up, even if negotiations start, that's not a positive, that's not good, okay? I can get a lot of stuff from my mom and dad if I show up with my Glock and threaten to kill myself. That doesn't mean that it was a successful negotiation, okay? You can have these conversations because the United States enjoys so much soft power, okay? Because traditionally we don't do unhinged crazy shit like this, okay? You can have all of these types of conversations without being an unhinged fucking lunatic.
The problem is that the tariffs are so ridiculously high and starting so...
Oh, and another benefit. Oh, all of the retard logic comes together. Remember how Republicans can get away with doing anything? Republicans can get away with doing anything because they say Democrats have already done it or the world has already done it. Remember, from the Trump perspective, the United States is actually acting with a lot of grace. Because remember, of the bullshit formula that we invented to calculate tariffs, the United States is only reciprocating half of a tariff. You understand that, right? The United States, so we're only putting a 30% tariff on you because we're saying you have a 60% tariff on us. So we're actually being nice, which gives us more room for, you guessed it, retaliation if any country retaliates against us, which they will, right? Because now that the U.S. has levied tariffs against every random fucking island in the world, of course they're going to respond. But now when they respond to tariff us, now we can say, oh, you're retaliating? Well, first of all, I don't know why you're retaliating. You already tariff us more than we tariff you. Now we're going to retaliate as well. So it's like, it's just, whatever, bro. Okay, sorry. Let the guy explain it.
Soon, and have been presented in a way that makes it very difficult for a democratically elected politician to immediately cave into them. You do not make yourself popular with your vote.
Oh my God, this was so hard to see. Sorry, just last thing. The herd in McDonald Islands were tariffed, which are incredibly small and have super small economies. And there was actually footage from the people as they were getting notice of these tariffs happening. Look at these poor guys, their families. Think about the economies of these small islands where there are no human inhabitants are going to be crushed, okay? Do you know what the funniest fucking story in the world would be? Is if in 5 years some leaked plan comes out where there actually was some company that was preparing to set up some offshore shipping firm on one of these islands and they had to stop because of the tariffs. Are these even like NATO recognized places? Like, are these like countries you can even tariff? Okay, sorry.
If you roll over and accept some, make big concessions to a bully, that's generally not the way electorates like to proceed. So I doubt that we're actually going to get much in the way of negotiations, simply because this isn't serious. The big issue or the big concern that people have been talking about to me today, and which I will probably be writing about tonight, is the dollar. Normally, when you have something bad happen, the dollar goes up. It's a safe haven.
Ooh. That's the thing I didn't even think about, because I just kind of take it for granted that the United States, that the USD is the global reserve currency. People that know more about econ can give you a better explanation, but my understanding is when we say global reserve currency, what that means is if I'm somewhere in the world, USD cash is king. US cash is king because I know I'll always be able to buy and sell. In fact, what country was I in? Where was I traveling to? I don't think it was in Mexico. I feel like I was in a country and I was surprised that they actually took USD like in the country. Like I could buy and sell things, or I could buy things using cash. They accepted US dollars. I was like, that's kind of weird. Oh, Aruba. It might have been Aruba. It might have been Aruba. Is that normal in Aruba? They speak like 4 languages there, and they have weird shit. I think, are they still owned by the Netherlands? But yeah, like USD is just, it's good because they always have people always want to hold USD because it's always good. You can spend it in the United States. You can spend it with other people. Yeah. So this is why that joke earlier of the joke earlier works. Of Warren Buffett holding so many treasury bonds or treasury bills, right? Because, like it's USD, it's always going to go up in times of economic crisis because as the assets fall, my USD maintains its value or rises a little bit. But if the USD were to actually become threatened as the global reserve currency, there's a chance that that type of calculation isn't always true. That not only could assets fall in the United States, but it could be that your currency falls as well. That's just a thing I believe as a US citizen, we just never really have to think about that. Same thing with U.S. investments as well. Another reason, I think a lot of U.S. investments are also buoyed by global investment as well, foreign direct investment, because so many people have USD, which, by the way, I think the only way people can get USD abroad is by having a trade imbalance with us, right? When we buy $600 billion worth of goods from somebody, and we only sell them $550 billion worth of goods, they have 50 billion USD that now they can spend with other people as well. It's okay.
At the moment, you're having a really big fall in the dollar at the same time as stocks are going down. My suspicion is that that's ultimately because capital moves much quicker than goods can. The US has actually...
We were catching up. Am I reading this backwards, or is the USD now losing its value against the euro? Oh no, we were almost at parity. No. We were almost 1-1. Oh, we were under Biden. We were greater than the euro. No.
Been at a trade deficit, but boy, has it been a surplus when it comes to capital. Especially because capital moves much quicker than goods can. The US has actually, it's been at a trade deficit, but boy, has it been a surplus when it comes to capital. People have been putting lots of money into the US. If you are now in a situation where you have to take profits where you can, where you have to return home because you're not going to be able to sell stuff, what are you going to sell? US stocks. That's where the profits are. If you sell US stocks, that will cause the dollar to go down further. That leads to a risk of a vicious circle, or what George Soros would call reflexivity, the notion that markets can create their own reality. People lose confidence in the US as this piggy bank of the world. They start taking money out, and that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Why isn't the euro the global reserve currency? Because one, the euro is, I think, much newer than the USD. And two, because people have more faith, I believe, in the United States government as being a thing that stays around forever with the USD versus the euro, which is held together by the European Union, which is like a conglomeration of other European countries that could drop out or whatever. It's just not as stable. I say not as stable, but the euro is probably like one of the most stable currencies in the world, to be fair. Sorry.
As the guiding principle that George Soros worked by, and we all know that Scott Bessent worked for George Soros for whatever it was, 20 years. That is the immediate fear that the US has been running a big trade deficit, but the other side of that is that other people have given it vendor finance, that they've spent a lot of money here, they've directed a lot of money to the US, which has made life a lot easier. That, you know, that's not raping and pillaging or whatever the phrases were that Trump used.
30 seconds. Is there any risk that U.S. dollar ceases to be a reserve currency?
Realistically?
It's hard to say realistically because none of this is real, because this is all comical. Like, I don't know if anybody understands how comical this is. Like, these are just insane, unbelievable numbers. These numbers are insane. A 20% tariff on the entire European Union market. 46% on Vietnam. 46%. 32% on Switzerland. 32% on Indonesia. What is this 49% on? I don't even know, underneath Malaysia. Like, these numbers are, even 10% worldwide would have been a joke number. 54%, I think, on China, because it's an addition to the 20 points already. 54% on China, on every good, on all intermediate products. Like,
yes, but a very small one. It's you really need
No, stop with this bullshit. Stop doing these theories in my chat. What about the theory that he's doing this to tank the market so him and his buddies can buy in at low prices? No, this is not a money thing. This is not a personal enrichment thing. If your only lens of analysis is, oh, people are just doing this to get more money for themselves, that's no. That's not what's happening here. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. That theory will not explain any of this, okay? Please stop. Take the lefty analysis and the Bernie billionaire analysis to Gary's channel, okay? Please.
A very small one. Okay. You really need to jump up and down on the trust that people have in this country in a quite dramatic way for it to lose that status.
Do you think this adds more credence to the idea that Trump was a Russian asset the whole time? No, this takes away from that theory, because there is no shot that anybody from Russia would even give him this idea, because it's so outlandish, because it's so fucking stupid. Nobody from Russia would suggest this. It would be such an unbelievably dumb idea. Wait, somebody said the total China tariff is 79%? I thought it was just 20 plus the listed.
Dramatic way for it to lose that status. It's conceivable at this point that it can happen.
Hello, Destiny. Can I ask, do you know any tariffs that are already set by EU for your products? For example, Lithuania has 21% for everything from the US. That's a lie. All of the numbers that they listed for reciprocal tariffs, those numbers are a lie. Those are not what tariffs are listed as. They just calculated it based off of our trade deficit. Those tariffs, every single thing on that chart is a fucking lie. Don't ever believe anybody that says that.
Still regard that as very unlikely. There's certainly plenty more moves, more throws of the dice before that happens.
All right, John, we got to leave it there. Always a pleasure. Can't wait to read your piece later on today. John Authors, Bloomberg.
The tiny island of St. Pierre et Miquelon got a 99% tariff because somebody bought 3.4 million worth of goods in July of 2024. Most likely crustaceans. The 5.8 thousand inhabitants only bought 100,000 worth of U.S. goods in 2024. Oh, no. Somebody fucked them over. These island people. The highest tariffs in the world is at a rate of 99%. Some dude here fucked it up for everybody. Oh, no, they didn't even fuck it up. Just some guy in the U.S. just bought some shit from them and fucked them up. Holy shit.
sum total of all of the numbers on the chart that the president brought out in the Rose Garden earlier, the United States is about to have the highest tariff rates in the world. I sat down with the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent about all of that and more at the White House earlier. And Secretary Bessent, thank you so much for being here. This is obviously...
What is the right's defense of this? Nobody talks to anybody on the right anymore. There's no challenges anywhere, right? I talked about this like a year ago with Trump and Hassan. The goal is if you just never go to challenging environments, there is no defense because you don't have to defend it. You just ignore it. You just don't talk about it. You just talk about other things. Like some trans woman got kicked out of school today. We won. Or MS-13 or Tren de Aragua or whatever new combination of Spanish words the administration decides to attribute to some foreign invader.
And Secretary Bessent, thank you so much for being here. This is obviously
All right, CNN, let's get a challenging interview. Let's go.
Massive announcement that the president just made. I know there were a lot of options being considered behind the scenes, different pathways. How did the president come to this decision?
Well, look, the president's had a vision for a long time. He's been talking about tariffs. He implemented China tariffs in his first term.
Okay.
So he has been thinking about this for a long time. And with the reciprocal tariffs, there are a group of factors. Is one, excuse me, what's the other country's tariffs? As important, or sometimes more importantly, what are the non-tariff barriers? Is there currency manipulation?
Did you see the Neuralink upload? Tariff and non-tariff barriers are how the reciprocal... See how the Neuralink upload, how everybody got the same talking points, even though they don't make any fucking sense? This is how you know it's a propaganda line as well, by the way. You know it's a propaganda line, and it's been like this for at least a year, because it's not like they're all inventing bullshit explanations for why people are doing things. They all have the same bullshit explanation. They all have the exact same bullshit explanation.
And is there unfair subsidy to labor or finance cost?
Yeah, and when you look at this, on the reciprocal tariffs themselves, how did you come up with a calculation, essentially, in terms of what this looks like for each country? Because obviously we're looking at the numbers here. There are different ones. And I can see some of the countries disputing some of these reciprocal tariffs, saying that's not actually what we charge. What would your response to that be?
Well, I can tell you USTR has the volumes of data, and they've been doing it a long time. So, and all this will probably be challenged in court, and I think that USTR in Trump's first administration won over 4,000 lawsuits, so I think the data is very robust.
So you expect that if there are any legal challenges that...
Hold on. Just to be clear, individual families can literally be self-sufficient. We just generally prefer today's standard of living instead of all being subsistence farmers. This I just saw Ryan Grimm's tweet. We can be self-sufficient. It just sucks. Hunter-gatherer tribes were self-sufficient. Like, you don't need a woman to come. You can just masturbate. Your sexual pleasure can be self-sufficient. I don't know why people assume self-sufficient is better than cooperation. We're a social creature.
The administration would be successful on that front.
I think the data is very robust, and it's going to be difficult to challenge.
And as we're looking at this, on China, for example, some of the nations, there's a baseline 10% tariff, and there's a reciprocal tariff. China has this 34% tariff. There were already 20% tariffs in place on China. So is that...
So why are we doing more? How are you calculating this one? Well, fuck them.
34% on top of that, meaning it's a 54% reciprocal tariff on China?
I believe it is.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and so when you look at that on the reciprocal tariffs, as these are going to an effect, I imagine some of these countries are going to call and try to negotiate this. Is that an option for these countries over the next few days, or what is the White House's mindset on that?
Well, I think the mindset is, let's just see where we are, and then...
Please, journalists. You guys literally might be our last bastions of defense, okay? Like, you might be the only thing standing between us and oblivion, okay? Can you please do your fucking job? Or, if not, then just, get formal jobs in the White House and just, get paid for being a press secretary or White House secretary, okay? You're not going to ask real questions. Then just, I don't know, then just don't do whatever you're doing. Don't pretend that you're a journalist, okay? This is not a starting point. This can't be a starting point, okay? This can't be a starting point, all right? If I have a disagreement, okay, with my girlfriend over how to do chores in the house, somebody coming into my apartment, seeing me streaming, and seeing her on the couch crying, okay, with her face all fucked up, and then coming in and saying, what happened? And me saying, negotiations on chores started 10 minutes ago, but we're figuring it out. That's not acceptable. That's not... Everything can't be a starting point.
And we'll see how President Trump feels about all this.
Okay, so it's essentially up to President Trump if he's in the mood to negotiate with some of these countries.
Well, I mean, it's not the mood.
It is. Hold on, let me use the restroom 1 second.
The fuck is this shit? Oh, okay. Can I get something from this? Bad, she bad. You know it. No, you know. Jamie Wolfskin, who's bad? Do I get something for this? Hold on. Alright, you gotta watch the whole thing. That's it. Oh, I should. Let me see. Mermaid shell.
It's the how. How are we seeing things? I think the real thing is going to be, and that he's going to gauge the level by. It won't be necessarily the calls from the
15423.
industry saying, okay, how can we get these off? And he's going to say, you can get it off. Bring your factory to the U.S.
Yeah, and obviously with the...
That means, so there is no freedom then. The tariffs are forever, right? When you say the way that you fix this is to manufacture here, so then what, we're never trading with other countries again, or?
The cars, all foreign-made cars, imports are getting a 25% tariff starting at midnight. If half the cars coming into the United States are foreign-made, that's hard to turn around overnight, as you know. So what would you say to people in the auto industry who are worried about that timeline and how quickly that can shift?
Buy American.
And what about American-made cars and produced cars that are being made using foreign-made parts?
Well, I believe the USMCA is exempt.
Yeah, those that are compliant with this, obviously Canada and Mexico are not on here. A lot of these are our closest allies, South Korea, Japan.
We're our closest allies.
When you look at those countries and the tariffs that they're being charged, if they're calling, what would you say to those nations who may have concerns about how to lower these numbers?
Well, I would say they've been doing it to us for a long time.
Oh, that's the line. That's the line. Remember, they can justify anything by inventing history. This is how everything works, right? It's why when I argue the trans stuff and people want to say male and female, objective moral truth, what is the objective truth, right? People want to argue on grounds like history or scientific fact because they can use that to justify post hoc anything they want. So if they can invent the history that people have already done anything to us, then we can invent the present where we can do anything to them.
And if they don't like tariffs, then why do they have them?
Also, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm analyzing this as a reasonable person. Keep in mind how contrary everything their plans are for, right? So you said that you wanted to replace the income tax with tariffs. That's why we're making the external revenue service, right? But if you're telling everybody that they need to buy American and they need to move all of their manufacturing onshore, doesn't that mean that we would make no income from tariffs, right? Wouldn't we just make all of our stuff domestically? So is your goal to eliminate all taxation, period? So how much of the government are you planning on shutting down? Like,
And if they don't like tariffs, then why do they have them?
And should we view these as permanent?
Like, you shouldn't let that stand. They don't have, you should correct that for the viewers, because he's getting to does this guy look like Jeb Bush a little bit? He does a little bit. Like, you should ask or clarify for the viewers, just to be sure, or just to be clear, these people don't have these tariffs on us. That's a lie, right? You should clarify that.
But I think we're going to wait and see how this plays out.
And if countries...
You're not waiting and seeing how it plays out. You've already taken first blood. You've already committed a massive action. You're not waiting for anything. What are you talking about? The time for waiting is past. You already done a thing.
Retaliate, which some have said that they would. Some have said they wanted to wait and see. What is the White House's response going to be to those countries?
Well, Caitlin, one of the messages that I'd like to get out tonight is everybody sit back, take a deep breath. Don't immediately retaliate. Let's see where this goes, because...
No, that's what you say when you're negotiating, okay? When you're negotiating, dipshit, you tell people, okay, let's figure this out. What are we going to do? You don't take a massive
dipshit
and then tell other people to chill out.
If you retaliate, that's how we get escalation.
No, you've already... Also, I'm sorry. It's so much. Why couldn't we act like this towards Russia? You're telling me that we were so fucking afraid of the saber rat. I'm gonna nuke you for Ukraine. Bullshit. We were so afraid of Putin starting nuclear war, starting World War III, but we're not afraid of economic World War III? Like, we're cool doing this and saying, well, let's see how everybody fucking responds. But with Russia, we're too afraid to even ship them to share intelligence or ship weapons to Ukraine? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay,
and then it becomes a full-fledged trade war, in your view?
Not a trade war. Depends on the country. But remember that the history...
Also, I'm sorry. That comment in YouTube chat, I'm sorry. You're 100% correct. Where did it go? It's so nice to see people with less than 15 years left in their clock deciding they want to go to the history books. Somebody needs to get the Shinigami eyes from Death Note and look at everybody's head. And if you have less than 10 years to live, get the fuck out. Because you can't ruin it for the rest of us that have to live on this fucking planet for the next 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years. Okay? When you've only got 5 to 10 years left. Okay? That's bullshit. Fuck you.
Trade is we are the deficit.
Why doesn't anyone ask why the president has the power to put tariffs on the whole world? Does the U.S. have an emergency with every country? Yes. Yes, we do. Yes. You didn't say that. Trump declared a national emergency against the whole world. Large and persistent annual U.S. goods trade deficits constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and economy of the U.S. That threat has its source, in whole or a substantial part outside the U.S., in the domestic economic policies of key trading partners and structural imbalances in the global trading system. I hereby declare a national emergency with respect to this threat. So yes, it is a national emergency with everybody because of LOL reasons.
LOL reasons.
Is he still using his emergency powers to these tariffs? Yes, that's what we just read. Yes, these are all emergency powers. The penguin people are screwing us over on trade.
The history of trade is we are the deficit country. The deficit country has an advantage. They are the surplus countries. The surplus countries traditionally always lose any kind of a trade escalation. So I did, as a student of economic history or a professor of economic history, I advise against it.
So you're essentially saying that they should not retaliate?
I would say that doing anything rash would be unwise.
And on the 10% of all imports across the board, that's that baseline on all countries. You know, you've said before that tariffs should be used strategically. What is the strategy in that? What is the ultimate end game for that?
No, I'd said that that's one use of the tariffs. You know, go back all the way to Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton used them to raise revenue. He used them to protect industry. And President Trump has added the third leg of the stool, which is strategic. So, you know, if we are thinking about
when your economic policy is coming from the 18th century, it's time to rope, okay? Why the fuck
Rope.
would you give a fuck about what anybody thought about global trade when we were eating fucking mercury to cure headaches?
a 10% global tariff, and let's assume that we import about $3 trillion a year. So that's 300 billion, and that's a substantial revenue raise.
Oh, the elasticity of goods and services, which by the way they even had higher in their bullshit formula, is zero. No. Yes. Right? So if we have 3 trillion of imports, that means that if we put 10% tax on it, we'll buy every single thing exactly the same. We'll still import $3 trillion worth of stuff. Every single thing that we import is maximally inelastic, and we'll buy the exact same shit and make $300 billion. I'm so glad, because I'm a retard, okay? I admit, I don't have I'm a fucking music school dropout, okay? I would have assumed, okay, because I'm a retard, remember, I would have thought that there would have been some pricing elasticity, meaning that when a thing costs more, people buy less, all right? I thought it was called the supply-demand curve. I didn't know it was just a fucking horizontal line on everything. So we'll just buy the exact same amount no matter what, despite the fact that he's telling everybody to bring everything domestic. So everybody's going to move their stuff domestically, and you're going to put huge tariffs on the whole world economy, but somehow we're going to import the exact same amount of stuff? Do you understand how fucking retarded this is? How even ignoring how stupid exogenously what they're saying is, right? That there are so many dumb assumptions baked into this. Even ignoring that, their internal system doesn't even work. How are we going to raise any money on imports if you're telling everybody to manufacture domestic and buy American? Okay, I'm done. Sorry. We're never going to... Okay, okay, just...
We're thinking about a 10% global tariff, and if we are thinking about a 10% global...
Also, I'm sorry, this is my last thing. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. They know this is stupid, because you know what else is stupid? A wealth tax. But when you talk about wealth taxes with these guys, what happens if you do just a 1% wealth? Oh, well, hold on. If you start doing a wealth tax, people are going to figure out sophisticated ways of tax allocation and of moving and sheltering, not only through tax avoidance, but maybe even tax evasion in ways that the IRS can't catch. And there's going to be capital flight from the United States. There's going to be all these... Oh, okay. Whoa. Can't touch any billionaire money. Can't touch the money for all the rich people. Okay. Ooh, okay, got it. Wealth tax? Okay, we won't do that. I'm so sorry. You're right, because that would cause a whole bunch of external negative effects on the market. But an aggregate 25% import tax on every single good around the world? People probably behave more or less the exact same. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Oh, cool. Everybody will do the exact same shit. Cool. Okay. Makes sense.
Tariff, and let's assume that we import about 3 trillion a year, so that's 300 billion, and that's a substantial revenue raiser that could then be used for working Americans on no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and for those buying autos, they can reduce their...
Wait, are we getting rid of... How much money is the federal government going to lose if we get rid of tax on Social Security? Oh my God. I just had a brain blast. No tax on tips. Who works for tips? Probably younger people. No tax on Social Security. Older people. And no tax on overtime. All the people. The goal is maximum employment of the economy. We're going to be working everybody from age 14 to 84. Everybody's going to be working. That's where we're going to find all the new workers. And they're all going to be working 60 hours a week for their untaxed overtime. Oh, I finally understand. Oh, this is a 23rd century economy that we're moving into. I gotcha. All right, there we go. Thank God. I got it. I understand,
their
fam.
bills, because interest on American-made cars will be tax deductible. So this is really a working...
Oh, the interest that you pay on your loan for your tax. Oh my God. Hold on. Let's look at the savings. Did they actually pass that? Let's look at the savings, fam. Car loan calculator. Also, remember, you have to itemize your taxes, and the Trump standard deduction doubled. So if you itemize your taxes, you have to exceed, what is a standard deduction now? Like doubling to 20,000 some dollars. What is current U.S. standard deduction? For a single person is about $15,000. Okay. So if you itemize, you need to find more than $15,000 of tax deductions in order to even take this credit, I believe. Okay. So, okay, car loan calculator. Hold on, just real quick. I'm so sorry. I'm so excited. I just want to see how much money I'm going to be saving. Okay. Let's say that I take out an auto loan for $20,000. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Even more genius. $30,000. Cars might.
Fuck is that?
But that's fine because we get to deduct the interest on our loan. Okay. We'll do a good 60-month loan. Okay. 5% interest. Although if interest rates come down, maybe 3.5% interest. Okay. We'll say a $5,000 down payment for my Doge reimbursement check. All right. California? Yeah, right. I want to be in a good state like Indiana. Sales tax? Whatever this is. Okay. Calculate. Total loan interest is $2,287 over 5 years. Now, it's front-loaded a little bit, but that means I get to have a tax deduction of $500 a year. If my effective tax rate, making 40 or 50 grand, is, I don't know, 15, 20%, I'm saving like, what would that be? Maybe $50 to $100 a year in taxes? Thank you, Trump. Thank God. Thank God. Thank you, Trump. Thank you, God Emperor. Yes. Thank you. Okay, sorry. I just want to get hyped over that.
Hyped. So fucking hyped.
And tax plan.
And if the point of this ultimately is to get people to buy more U.S.-made products, but you are counting on that revenue, as we've seen some of your colleagues like Peter Navarro arguing how much money.
Can't believe I just did this shit.
In the end, wouldn't that theoretically dwindle over time if people are buying more U.S. and there's less money coming in?
Oh my God! She actually asked a real question. Oh, true. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Oh man, how does he do this one? How does he answer? Okay. Do we get the programming? Do we have the programming for the response here?
Products, but you are counting on that revenue, as we've seen some
Tariff and tax plan.
And if the point of this ultimately is to get people to buy more U.S.-made products, but you are counting on that revenue, as we've seen some of your colleagues like Peter Navarro arguing how much money this could bring into the United States. In the end, wouldn't that theoretically dwindle over time if people are buying more U.S. and there's less money coming in from what's being imported into the United States?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's why in the past I've called tariff policy done properly is a shrinking ice cube, because what will happen, we will start out with high tariff income, but then as the factories come to the U.S., we will have more business income and we'll have more paycheck income.
I already watered this.
Will be earning. So you would see it's a rebalance.
That's very fine-tuned tariff policy. You're talking about not.
Can I get another fucking pearl?
You're talking about setting.
I wonder if I can get a pearl every night.
Ice tray, like.
So we rebalance away from tariffs to more domestic income.
But the idea that it would put a dent in the national debt then would seem not to be likely, right?
Correct. Thank you. Thank you. I should know the name of this host because we watch her quite a bit. Caitlin Collins. Is she a host or just an anchor? I don't know what the difference is on these.
Well, not at all, because for right now,
seem not to
domestic income.
But the idea that it would put a dent in the national debt then would seem not to
like bullshit,
to
right?
be likely,
That's
right?
kind of fucking retarded, right?
Not at all, because for right now, we have the income that we have, and we will be adding tariff income to that. So
get out of my way, bitch.
These are my Ivy League educated people. What? What's happening here, guys? What are these answers? I take back what I said. Everything I said before about going to college or whatever, all the people were right. It is a waste of fucking time. Imagine being a loser who wastes his money on a college education when you could just be like this guy. You really are a fucking moron if you've ever listened to Destiny talk about the importance of going to school.
Can I get a pearl every night?
Holy fuck.
When we get CBO scoring, the CBO scoring is not going to include any tariff income. It's not going to include any. So this is all going to be extra. So we're at this that the other T other than tariffs is tax. And from here, I'll be spending most of my time on the tax bill. And we're in this strange betwixt and between.
Can only get one pro.
Because there will be substantial tariff income.
Great.
There will be substantial.
I'm stuck in this shit.
Wait, what, did he want to say tax income? But I don't think they're allowed to say that, right? Because they're like anti-tax guys, right? Do you think he was about to say that?
Anti-tax guy.
Uh-oh.
Substantial savings, and we're not going to get credit for either of those.
The cost savings, if there is substantial tariff income, the implication is that people are paying an additional tax to buy the same shit they bought before. Where the fuck is the cost saving at? What the fuck are you talking about? Where is the cost? Please, if that was her next question, I'll donate $500 to her Patreon, okay? Please ask. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And also, they should do this, and women can do this really well just because of, it's kind of a sexist thing, but I feel like the ability to, no, actually men do it well too, because Ethan was doing it with Hassan. Asking kind of like an oblivious
word.
That's actually a really difficult question to answer. I feel like it's a really good, I call it the drunken master debate tactic, okay? Asking like, oh, where is the cost savings going to come from? Because I thought that you just said we were going to pay more in tariffs.
With CBOs.
Well, and obviously that's why you've been having a lot of conversations with Republican lawmakers. But before I get to international markets start to respond to the
Wild plum.
Markets in the United States are already closed. What do you expect the stock market to look like when it opens tomorrow in reaction to this?
I don't know. I don't
Wild plum.
Treasury Secretary, you can't even guess. This was yesterday. Well,
$4.20 for one peach. Peach and plum.
Don't worry, guys.
Ooh, more peaches.
Like, come on, you don't even notice it.
Peach wine.
know where it's going to trade open tomorrow. I don't know where it's going to close tomorrow. And I think what's going to be important are the underlying economic fundamentals, because at the end of the day, Warren Buffett says in the short.
Why the fuck would
You need some more peach trees.
Warren Buffett? You think he's on board with how you're running things?
Because at the end of the day, Warren Buffett says in the
Maple bar.
Market's a voting machine. In the long run, it's a weighing machine.
Well, and we've heard some of the allies of this White House say there will be some short-term pain for Americans. I think regular people watching may say, how do you define short-term? What does that look like for me and for my bottom line? What would you say to them?
Well,
Farming, fishing, mining.
There are two things there to unpack, Caitlin. One is on what we were doing on government spending. So we were bringing down government jobs, we're bringing down government borrowing. So this
didn't you ask to raise the debt ceiling by like another $4 trillion though? I thought the Republicans did that. So you haven't completely gotten rid of the deficit, right? When are we getting a new budget, by the way, so that we can even keep track of where the deficit is? Any idea?
Unsustainable level of government stimulus is stopping. And then on the other side, private sector jobs and private sector borrowing will take over. Those may not be perfectly matched, but we did see an increase of 10,000 manufacturing jobs last month.
Oh, 10,000 manufacturing jobs. Those are going to save. Thank you. Thank you.
On the other side, when you think about especially for working Americans, could we get a price adjustment due to the tariff? Maybe, maybe not. Walmart CEO seems intent on making China or his suppliers in China eat all the tariffs. So Walmart, biggest retailer in America, 40 million people a week go in there. So
yeah, Walmart's going to get. How does that even make sense? What did he say? Professor of economics? Where the fuck did this guy teach at? Trump University? They're taking down my building.
Large milk.
They're lobbying for supplier price cuts. Walmart CEO says customers feel frustration and pain.
All right.
They are trying to pressure their suppliers. but there's only so much pressure. If a person can't make money selling a thing, they're just not going to sell the thing. I mean, what are you going to do?
And then on the other side, once the tax bill gets through, then we will see the decrease for working Americans. So that's why part of what I've been doing up on the Hill is pushing the House, pushing the Senate.
Plums, no peaches.
I think the most undertold story in Washington, D.C.
I have a lot of peaches.
Yeah, well, on that front, and we'll see what Republicans do and how that looks. Obviously, that's the president's ambitious agenda. The argument of short-term pain, long-term gain, which seems what you're arguing about the long-term, what this will look like. Prices will go up for Americans in the short term, right?
They could. They don't have to.
And that's if they don't have to. You're arguing
how could prices not go up if the whole goal of the tariff is to make things cost more so that domestic manufacturing can be competitive? If prices don't go up, wouldn't that mean nobody's onshoring manufacturing? Isn't that what that means?
Businesses do not pass those on to those consumers.
Well, in the President Trump's first administration, prices didn't go up. So
in his first administration, he put a 40% tariff on the entire fucking world. What is this argument? Hello? Why would you even cite that? My grandma has terminal brain cancer. It's spread everywhere through her body. They said she has 6 months left. Do you think she'll make it? Well, your grandma didn't die in Trump's first term, right? Why would she die in the second one?
President Trump's first administration, prices didn't go up, so the businesses don't have to pass them on, or the producers in the other countries can.
Oh, and the businesses that didn't go to business that were impacted by tariffs last time, by the way, they were.
God damn it! Why do?
They did go out of business. I think steel was hurt, and other people that didn't go to business because the United States bailed them out, like soybean farmers. So.
And eat the tariffs, and traditionally the dollar adjusts. So it's a very complicated calculus to see where we end up.
Yeah, and of course, these are much broader than the ones in the first term. The president was making the argument in the Rose Garden about what economists predicted then and what this looks like now. But on what you mentioned on what the president promised on the campaign trail, whether it comes to no taxes on tips or Social Security, do you envision this in a large way helping pay for that? Because sometimes that's
no tax on tips.
On the campaign trail, economists predicted then and what this looks like.
The calculus to see where we end up.
Yeah, and of course, these are much broader than the ones in the first term. The president was making the argument in the Rose Garden about what economists predicted then and what this looks like now. But on what you mentioned on what the president promised on the campaign trail, whether it comes to no taxes on tips or Social Security, do you envision this in a large way helping pay for that? Because sometimes that's a criticism from critics of this White House, saying that he's just using these tariffs to pay for the extension of those tax cuts.
Well, for the extension of the tax cuts or the new no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and auto deductibility. And look, what's wrong with that? That if
I made the wrong thing. Asteroid collectors, fam. Oh my God, I'm so stupid.
If we take a 10% ring around the globe tariff, that if there's a currency appreciation, if the producers eat a portion of it, and then there's a slight price adjustment on the globe tariff, that if there's a currency appreciation, if the producers...
Our currency is depreciating. Why would this cause a currency appreciation?
Producers eat a portion of it, and then there's a slight price adjustment on the other side.
Burnt offerings furniture. This furniture can't be placed outdoors.
So we buy the same amount of shit, have other people eat the costs of these import taxes.
I don't know what that is.
Have our currency magically appreciate in value against the rest of the world. Oh, okay.
At the end of the day, we could imagine that their real after-tax purchasing power has substantially increased.
And we'll see what that looks like. But on just this overall,
substantially.
Some people say, most Americans, I feel pretty good about where the economy was when President Trump took office. We saw the stock market rally. Do you have any concerns that this announcement will put that in jeopardy for Americans?
Well, first of all, Caitlin, I would back up because on the campaign trail and for the previous year, I called it the steroid economy. It looks great on the outside, you're kind of big.
And a lot better.
But on the inside, it's killing your internal organs. And what was happening was we were heading for a financial crisis. We were at 6.7% deficit.
Thank God we avoided that. Thank God we avoided the financial
Large eggs. Oh.
We've never had when we weren't at war, weren't in a recession, and no
I
matter
need a
what,
sheep.
we're going to have to put the brakes on that. So that as we bring that down, I'm feeling pretty good about averting the crisis and getting to the other side of this.
Secretary Bessent, thank you so much for your time.
Good to see you.
Actual just fucking... It's just retard speak. The dumb leading the dumb.
Retard speak. I always end up trying to go here on Wednesdays.
On something you just said, but since we have these messages released, and you said that the president has now
Did we watch this full press conference? This is a back and forth.
Personally reviewed them. At the chat, at one point, Pete Hegseth wrote 14-15 strike drones on target, and in all caps, he said, "This is when the first bombs will definitely drop." Does the president feel that he was misled by his national security advisors, whoever it was that told him there was no classified information in there, now that he's seen these messages?
I've now been asked and answered this question 3 times by the both of...
Oh, yeah, we did, okay.
You were about your reaction to Luigi Mangione. I was reading up,
Oh, don't care. Bill Slop. Detroit, April 3rd, Reuters. Stellantis, Nevada.
The fuck is this?
Trucks and Jeeps said on Thursday it was temporarily
Placed on a wall?
workers at 5 U.S. facilities after President Donald Trump's tariffs were announced. Based.
Get rid of this picture.
What?
know that perhaps you've been supportive of what he did. What is your take on that?
If you were reading up, I don't think you read up on it. Because I said what I felt about it, and I said what a lot of
Some
people said.
took it that way. So could you clarify what you think?
No, I'm not going to just have some controversial moments so you can get clicks. I'm not doing that. I'm here for Conan. I'm not doing all of this. What are you going to bring up next? The Middle East? I went to summer school 3 out of 4 years in high school. I'm not qualified to talk about this.
I was just
What do you think about global warming?
You said about Elon that he was ruining Earth, I saw on The View. You're critical of him. What do you think of all the boycotts, like even the violence
I don't watch
that's
the
going on
news.
at Tesla?
I don't watch the news. I have no idea what's going on. I watch Instagram. I watch people wipe out on motorcycles. I watch lions and hyenas fight each other. This is the things that I do. And I don't think you should be asking a comedian. You're a journalist.
Comedians are on top of current events.
No. That's weak. That's you guys passing the buck. You guys need to have balls again, which you don't. You guys always goes, should we be thinking this? Duh. You guys present stuff like that. You guys used to have balls. You need to get your balls back. And it's not my job. I am a dancing clown.
Okay. I mean, he did offer up his opinion on things first, so, I mean, I don't know why he'd be surprised that people are asking him about it, but... Oh, these are timestamp. I thought this was a new video. I don't want to beat up on this guy because he's not unique here, but...
If you make protectionism blanket, which is what he's saying, so I get why people are triggered by that. But if you read that as him trying to fire a shot across the bow, because if he actually does that, he's a moron, just to be nice and cut and dry. But if that is him trying to signal to other people to knock them off balance, which I have every reason to believe he does, that he is full kayfabe, that he is perfectly willing to walk into a room and act just a little bit crazy. I mean, he's talked openly about it. He does that to unbalanced people because they don't know which part of what he's saying is crazy. A tariff across the board on everything is a fool's errand from where I'm sitting. But a selective tariff to protect certain industries, I think, does make potential sense. Now, I'd have to dig way more in all of that. And to
I call it tariff apocalypse because it happened. Reciprocal tariffs, the automotive industry tariffs.
Destiny, check out Macro and Money, soft defense of Trump's tariffs. He goes more in-depth into the Trump tariffs in an attempt to make sense of them more than anybody else. Sounds to me like that's just a Trump dick suck, but maybe I'll check it out. What's it called? Macro and Money? Macro and Money. What is this, like a YouTube channel or podcast or this?
Welcome.
I always say tariffs is the
steel and aluminum import tariffs, the Venezuelan oil secondary tariffs. We'll get to that.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing. Secondary tariffs, a whole different thing.
Our trade relations with Canada and Mexico, those tariffs. Today is the day that a lot of those tariffs are going into effect. We already see some fear and insecurity around the stock market. The consumer price index is moving. Consumers have less confidence in the American economy. I understand on paper, long term, this is supposed to be better, but it hurts right now. How do we move through this tariff apocalypse? What do you think happens in the short term? And what can people do to kind of either brace for it or just kind of have to eat their medicine and just kind of wait it to work?
In the short term, it creates chaos. America's in a very precarious position because even I, as a lifetime American citizen, born and bred here, as a businessman, I look at this and go, I don't know for how long this is going to be true. And when you build your government based on executive orders, then the next president's going to come in and they're going to write a whole bunch of executive orders that undo all the executive orders from the president before.
Trump did that day one, yeah.
100%. Yeah. And so it's like, if I'm not mistaken, over the last 3 presidencies, it's been like orders of magnitude more EOs. And so we're just in this period where it's like, we're going to do everything by decree. And that creates the unknown. So I don't know, as a capital allocator, I'm like, do I move as if these tariffs are for real? Like when people talk about the 2.02 trillion, Trump is now saying that is far more than that, of these companies that are like, okay, we're going to invest massively in America. We're going to be moving our chip manufacturing here, our car manufacturing here, et cetera, et cetera. Will that actually play out? Now, I'll plant a flag on this one. I'll be very curious to see if I end up being right. My gut instinct is these guys are buying themselves time to midterms. They will spend the least amount of money possible to find out if Trump is going to pull this off. And if they do, then they'll fast track the rest. And it's like, okay, cool. We expect him to be in power, the Republican Party to be in power for another 4 years. And so now you're talking about a 6-year ride. Yeah, we're going to have to make investments. You'll never survive public scrutiny as a public company. If you're like, no, trust me, they're going to go out of power in 6 years. No way. At that point, they will say, okay, cool. I at least see this runway. But that's my instinct, that they're going to buy themselves time. And if we are in a recession at the time of the midterms, it will flip. This will go Democrat. Trump will become lame duck and Republicans will lose power and Democrats will step back in and just obliterate with EOs everything that Trump has done. And so that's just how this pendulum swings. That makes me paranoid. Okay. I've lived here my whole life. So I can only imagine, and I don't have shit that like struggles with tariffs. We're a media company. So it's like, we make everything right here. And even I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. Yeah. So the short term is all insecurity, the unknown, paranoia, turbulence in the markets. Long term, if you can pull it off, it onshores manufacturing. It begins to reignite the middle American male in a belief in himself that he can do something, build something, create something, use his hands. I always caveat, AI could just make all of this a moot point, but you have to debate right now in the world where people just cannot imagine what the future is actually going to be like. And so they're all acting as if AI isn't going to just totally change this anyway. So I'll keep my arguments at that level. But I think that is necessary given that we are in a Cold War with China. And so people have to put it into that global context because that is, as far as I can tell, precisely what's driving Bessent, Lutnick, Trump, Elon, like all of them understand this moment at a global level in the way that I don't think most of us on a day-to-day
fucking shit.
These guys have made more money off of understanding global markets than anybody. So they get it. Like they get, especially Bessent, understands how global macroeconomics works. And so given that, I think they're all racing to try to pull this off, to understand what a Cold War with China is going to look like, to understand how much of our modern life is controlled through Taiwan, that Taiwan is the number one target of China, that China...
God damn! These fuckers so expensive, fuck.
Chinese make things. So it is a very important game to understand all of that and to recognize that we have to bring some of this back. And so it is a game I think we have to play. You can't just accept defeat. You can't just say, well, China now controls everything. And I guess when they decide that they're not going to give us any more, like, fuck us. I think about this a lot with Israel and Gaza, Palestine. Bro, you can't let people control your water, your power. I expect people to hate this fucking take, but this is self-evident to me. I don't give a fuck if I'm under an apartheid regime or not. If you're sending me $1 billion in aid, I don't build my military capabilities until I can take care of my fucking water and power. So I'm going to make sure that I'm getting as close to 100% on my own 2 feet as humanly possible. And that would be my pitch to Americans.
Just to be clear, no offense to you guys in God's chosen land of milk and honey. There is no milk and honey in Israel. That territory is dog shit. Israel exclusively survives on their culture and the trade that they do with other countries. What the fuck do you think they do in Israel? Do you think they're huge producers of energy and massive, swaths of natural resources from the rich lands of the fucking Middle East. Not the Middle East, but specifically where they live. Yeah, but
hey, we are not on our own 2 feet from a manufacturing standpoint. China has got you, man, by the short and curlies, as they used to say. And so us pretending that that isn't the case, or us intentionally blinding ourselves, I don't know. But that's why I'm like, kids, don't you hope Trump is right? Like, you've got to onshore some of this. I'm not saying all of it.
Where is the future? Like, it's in AI and it's in software. It's in cyberspace. That's a term we used in the 90s. Like which countries are destroying the United States because they could produce and manufacture textiles?
Iridium.
Of this, you've got to onshore some of it. Anyway, I would listen to Bessent. I would listen to Letnick far more closely than I listen to Trump. He does so much chaos in his speaking, in a way that those two are very clear, very cogent. You can track the internal logic. We're going to find $1 trillion in deficit with Doge. Sorry, we're going to find $1 trillion in deficit spending with Doge.
Are we?
And then we're going to find $1 trillion in additional revenue from things like tariffs, things like Trump's gold card. We're going to balance the budget, and then we're going to deregulate. We're going to unlock the economy. We're going to get to, say, 4 or 5% GDP growth.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, everybody's feeling good. If they do that by the midterms, dude, you got another 4 years on top of this. So it's just a question of, given the complexities of global markets, can they? Yeah. I don't know.
And then drilling down into the Venezuelan secondary tariffs. So reciprocal tariffs, they have 200 tariffs on American avocado. So we put 200 tariffs on Indian. 200%. 200% on there. So that's the reciprocal. But secondary is something different that you broke down. So I want you to break that down too for those of my, and that's specifically to countries importing Venezuelan oil.
Yep. So a secondary tariff is where the economic warfare machine that is the U.S. Treasury Department, which Bessent even said, when asked, like, what was the thing you find most surprising about your job? And he said, how much of my time is spent on national security? Meaning, I'm going to go to countries and be like, you imported Venezuelan oil. Nope. Now there's a tariff across whatever on your country. And so this is how you break the back of an economy and this is the thing that we haven't done with Russia. To me, Venezuelan oil is whatever. This really plays out in, can we put secondary tariffs on anybody that does business with Russian oil? And you're starting to hear Trump now make noises about it. This is the drum that I've been banging. I will remind myself not to over-index on how much I care about being right. I need to find the right answer. It's the only thing that matters. I'm going to be wrong a lot. But this was one of those things where I was like, this is almost certainly the play. Trump is not a stooge for Putin, and he's going to put in his back pocket that if Putin doesn't play ball, because to look like a hero, Trump has to end that fucking war. Because he said, I'll end it on day one. Everybody knew that wasn't true.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, he said he would end it even before he came to office, but okay.
But nonetheless, like, you called your fucking shot, bro. And so, I got to get this one fucking done. So I think he knows that. And if Putin ends up being the one that's trying to stall, trying to
Moonstone gold,
paying any kind of attention. And so Trump has said, I'm going to use secondary tariffs on the Russian oil and gas economy, because the reason that they've been able to continue to thrive and run this war is all the sanctions that everybody put on them was on everything except their largest industry by a country mile, which is oil and gas. And the reason they couldn't do that is that will spike gas prices in Europe and elsewhere. So you're going to get all this pressure from your allies who are like, hey, we get the moral thing here, but I also can't have grandma freezing to death in the
iron coal
because we want to punish Putin. My populace is not going to go for that. So
why not? Don't we support Israel doing
warrior energy?
Right? What, isn't Netanyahu talking about, fuck it, cut all their shit off, see if they fucking starve, make Hamas do shit, right? If we can do it to people in fucking Gaza, why can't we do it to the fucking Russians?
So
pussies.
This is where it's like, okay, understand
not him, but Trump.
Potency of a secondary tariff if you can pull it off. So I think what Trump is betting on is that we can up our production here in the U.S. Of oil and natural gas, and then we can export it to make up that demand. So we would effectively be taking market share from Russia. Fucking awesome for us, man. Awesome for us. Devastating for Russia if we can pull it off. So yeah, my hunch is that that's the algorithm that Trump is running. And he's saying something to Putin like, you have two choices. Choice number one, end the fucking war. Choice number two, I'm going to take your market share and sell our oil and natural gas. Now, there's a huge base assumption in there that we can meet that demand at a price that would be of roughly equal value to Europe, and I have not looked closely enough at it to know if that's true. That breakdown rides in the back of that assumption, but his behavior doesn't make sense.
Like, there's just so many things I wish I could do. I want to go on to a place like these. I want to go to a podcast like this, places like this, and I'll be like, trans kids and wokeness. And you're like, yeah, this is horrible. No, it's not horrible. It's an amazing start for negotiations. It's like, negotiations for what? Well, you agree trans people are probably real, and we should have trans carve-outs for adults. Well, think about it. If your starting position is my 4-year-old can be trans, suddenly an 18-year-old being trans doesn't seem that extreme anymore, right? Isn't that a good starting position? You negotiate down in age as much as possible, and you get up to the, what your actual position is. Like, okay, that's what Trump does, right? Okay, maybe. We have some of the best female athletes in the world, right? Yeah. Wouldn't having the occasional low T male or trans female competing with them, wouldn't that boost their ability to compete? Like, imagine how easy it would be in the Olympics if our female athletes also had to train against trans female athletes. I think that this sort of trans athlete policy, in a way, strengthens our own homegrown female athletes in a way that other countries aren't able to, because they don't have the same access to trans women that our female athletes do. Isn't that a good thing? Like, just make like the most retarded fucking arguments ever, but like have like a line of logic behind it. Like, I'm going to mind read that, because we can never mind read Trump when it comes to bad things, right? When Trump said the election was stolen, you need to fight like hell or you're going to lose your country. We're going to go to Congress and we're going to give them the power they need to do the right thing. And then he sends everybody to the Capitol, and then they riot and break in and delay. Then we say, well, we can't mind read Trump. We don't know what he did. Okay, explain the tariffs again. So for the tariffs, what he's trying to do is he's trying to do primary tariffs and then secondary tariffs in the hope that he stops the war in Ukraine, because it'll cause Russia, who previously was able to trade energy, and Trump is aware that a substantial part of their economy and the ability to sustain their war comes from the energy production there. I don't know why he has to tariff the entire fucking world. Oh, because it's kind of like secondary and tertiary. And it's like, bro, you think Trump even knows what secondary tariffs are? Or what tertiary even means? Or what any, like, what the fuck? When have you ever heard Trump talk about this, ever?
Minus that.
Never.
We see you said macroeconomics earlier. So in other international news, China, Japan, and South Korea have agreed to closely cooperate in response to
the centrist and MAGA supports celebrating. That reminds me so much of the energy right before the Iraq invasion. Retards typing retards into a retard situation. True.
U.S. tariffs. So we're already seeing other countries saying, okay, this is happening, so now we need to kind of rethink our business deals and our trade deals.
Not just countries saying it. It's one thing if Germany and France and Italy, hey, they had their moment 80 years ago in World War II. But since then, they have not been bitter rivals. When I say China, Japan, and South Korea fucking hate each other, I mean hate, in like all capital letters.
All capital letters.
Wrong, and I totally admit it's just based on the limited experiences that I've had being in Taiwan and being in South Korea. But I asked people there, because like I learned as an American, oh my God, World War II, that was some crazy shit, and blah, blah, blah. For almost everybody that I spoke to, everybody said that the people that they don't like the most, I think they just said were, it was South Koreans, because they felt like they were the most stuck up when they traveled to other countries. But like people in Taiwan and Japan seem to be fine. And at the end of the day, like people don't care that much. Now, maybe there are other people in these countries, older people, maybe that feel a lot differently. I don't know. I just don't have access to those people, and I don't see them on the internet much. But is it true that these Asian countries hate each other like so fundamentally? I feel like a lot of the conflict just comes from like North Korea and China. You know, like North Korea testing fucking nuclear weapons or ballistic missiles or ICBMs. I don't know if they've gotten up to the I yet. But that's where a lot of this comes from. But I don't know, like, does Japan fucking hate South Korea, or do the people of China hate the people of Japan or South Korea as much? I don't know. Maybe they do, and I just don't see that as much. But
seeing the three of them, in fact, there's a reason that they did the photo op where they're doing like the cross-armed handshake thing, like where you each wrap arms as you cheers and drink from your glass. Yeah, so that is, I have to believe, even from their own lens, they view that as this is historic, because the amount of animosity, man, cannot be overstated. Like this is like if 30 years from now.
Also, let's say that everything you're saying is true. Then, if they truly do have this level of animosity against each other, they fucking hate each other so much, and they're coming together to, for the first time in half a decade or whatever, have talks about trade. What does that mean about what we're doing? How does that bode for us if everything you're saying?
To get out of here or fucking die.
Palestinians and Israelis were holding hands and doing a trade deal, you'd be like, whoa, those guys used to be bitter rivals. And now they're shaking hands.
I have a conspiracy theory. I think that this could be the start of like a rising empire, because I think if China as the head, Japan and South Korea kind of fall in as the equivalent to our Mexico and our Canada, to their China, that can be like a dynasty in Asia that I think can essentially take over the world, because they're already, each of them individually already are cutting edge in so many different industries that you just scale that with China's manufacturing and you can take over practically. Like,
here's the thing, that isn't a conspiracy theory. That is
I don't know if China's system of governance and everything and the way their economy works, I don't know if it would allow them to work with, like, I don't know how the integration would work. I truly have no idea. I don't know. Like, I don't think they do. I have no idea if that would be possible or not.
Exactly, geopolitics. So geopolitics is who's got the baddest military on planet Earth? Usually the Navy. Whoever's got the best Navy wins. And so everybody's always asking themselves two questions: who can beat me militarily, and who has trade that I can do with that would make me more prosperous as a nation? And for the last 70-ish years, it's been Pax Americana. And America's had the best Navy. We've patrolled the seas. We have kept the international order on land. And we were also the biggest economy. So everybody would ask those two questions, and would come up, America, America, America. And then globalism happens, and this is why you'll forever get this expand and contract, expand and contract. You expand through globalism, you contract through protectionism. And the reason that, aka populism, the reason that happens is, as you go globalist, you make your quote-unquote enemies strong. And for better or worse, when humans get strong, and they detect any weakness in somebody else, which almost always comes after you have a big empire, then they go, hey, wait a second, why am I doing what you want me to do? I'm going to start doing what I want to do. I'm going to start doing trade alliances with Japan and South Korea, and I don't care about you. I don't care what the U.S. thinks about this. And the Japanese and South Koreans start going, America's being a little dodgy right now. I don't know, like, they swing wildly from one administration to the next. I don't feel confident that I know who they are, what they're going to be like in 4 more years. And so China might be authoritarian, and maybe I don't love that, but at least they're consistent. I think that I look into the future, I see Xi Jinping as far as the eye can see. What do we have, 20 years, 30 years left with Xi Jinping? Hey, that's the kind of future I can see, I can predict. I love that. And just like Americans knew that fucking Mao starved his own people to death, that he made Darth Vader look like the nicest guy ever. He made the Emperor look like a good dude. So we were still more than happy to go sell shit to them. So this is what happens. You go, I can get cheap shit from them. I can sell them things. This is going to be amazing. And it's what sets up Thucydides' trap. And so we might need to do like a video on Thucydides' trap or something at some point, because that's one of those that sounds so fancy and people don't know what that means. It just means for all my UFC fans, you've got a champion. He's been dominant forever, but he gets towards retirement age. He just can't accept that the young bucks are coming for him. For a while, he's going to dodge him. Going to be like, he's not my class. He's got to fight these other people before he gets to me. Disrespect. And then it gets to the point where you can no longer deny that they're the one you should be fighting. They're the number one contender. So what do? You go on a bark offensive. What a fool, what an idiot, doesn't know how to fight. I'm going to thrash him, beat him in the first 30 seconds. You've never seen anything like this. Trying to get in their head, trying to keep them weak. But ultimately, you actually throw punches. Now, all the yapping is the economic warfare. Unfortunately, like 70% of the time, it ends in actual bloodshed. And we're on that path. And we are acting exactly the way Thucydides' trap comes from the fucking ancient Greeks. And seeing what was happening between Athena and Sparta, it was like, yeah, these two are going to collide. Like,
this is unbelievable. Charity, Jesus.
Your hat on for a second, because they're pointing to one of these cases of a gentleman that they said should not have been deported from El Salvador. They said he was not connected to MS-13. What would you tell them about that case? Because they're saying that this is a person that was a great member of society. You've looked at the court records. You've talked to the men and women on the ground. What can you tell us about that situation?
Well, there have been a few cases out there where...
So this is the Venezuelan guy, the MS-13 / Tren de Aragua gay gang leader dude, okay, that was deported without due process because of his rainbow tattoo or whatever, I think.
The Democrats and the media say, oh, this person was just an innocent father of 3, and then you find out, for example, I think this is the case that you're talking about. Back in 2019, an immigration judge looked at all the evidence, looked at all the data, and concluded that this allegedly innocent person that we sent to El Salvador was actually a member of an MS-13 gang. He had also committed some traffic violations. He had not shown up for some court dates. This is not exactly...
Holy shit, this motherfucker had... speeding tickets?
This motherfucker.
Oh no. What? Traffic violations? Oh no.
Father of the year here. This is a person that we don't think should be of an MS-13 gang. He had also committed some traffic violations. He had not shown up for some court dates. This is not exactly Father of the Year here. This is a person that we don't think should be in our country. Here's the most important point, though, Lawrence, is whatever the argument is, whatever the justification is, no one doubts, not even the crazy left-wing media criticize the idea that we could deport this person.
Oh, they're talking about the barber here? My bad.
They just took issue with the reasoning for why we deported this person. This was unquestionably an illegal alien. This was reasoning as the idea that we could deport this person. They just took issue with the reasoning.
That's an important thing to consider when you're embarking on a legal process.
For why we deported this person. This was unquestionably an illegal alien. This was unquestionably a person who broke the laws to get into our country.
I don't even know if that was.
This is unquestionably a person an immigration judge had found had zero right to be in the United States of America. We do not ask permission from far left Democrats before we deport illegal immigrants. We do the American people's business. And again, for the American people who are watching, this is such a weird, mistaken placement of priorities. We need to make our country stronger. We need to create jobs. We need to make our streets safer. What is it about congressional Democrats that get more angry at deporting violent gang members than they do at the victims?
Violent? What kind of traffic infractions were these? By the way, they had to have been speeding tickets, because if these traffic infractions were like DUIs or something, he would have said it.
Of those violent gang members. I don't even understand where they're coming from. They've gone off the deep end, and they got to come back to reality.
Thanks, Vance.
Hello?
Apparently, Benny Boy actually took a stand.
Well, folks, yesterday was Liberation Day, and we are going to go through everything tariff-related you could possibly imagine. First, your reminder, we exist, cut through the noise, and bring you the unpleasant facts that others will not. Uncensored, ad-free daily shows, investigative journalism, live chats with my producers. Breaking news first, no filter, no nonsense. The Daily Wire is where the real story lives. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe and join the fight today. Okay, so yesterday, President Trump declared that it was, in fact, Liberation Day. He said this was our economic declaration of independence. Now, I'll start with his announcement yesterday, and then I want to talk about what it is that he actually announced. Because the markets are getting rocked, and there's a reason they are getting rocked. Here was President Trump yesterday in the Rose Garden celebrating Liberation Day. To be fair, he had warned everybody a month in advance that he was going to do this sort of thing. Here he was.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. Waiting for a long time. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day
Industry.
and the day that we
Industry. Motherfucker can't even talk right.
Important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our Declaration of Economic Independence.
Sounds cool. Sounds cool. So how are we going to actually do that? Well, here's the president's vision of international trade is, I am sorry to say, mistaken. The president seems to believe that international trade is a zero-sum game. Here was the president explaining that actually the United States is a victim of everyone else when it comes to...
What's your audience looking like for this? I respect Ben for sticking to his views on this, despite the fact that he might have lost quite a few viewers from the Trump side. Wow. Best Ben video I've seen in ages.
Good job. Good job, Ben.
Look, his audience is supporting here, at least early on in the first hour.
International trade over the past several decades.
Nearly a century later, in the face of unrelenting economic warfare, the United States can no longer continue with a policy of unilateral economic surrender. We cannot pay the deficits of Canada, Mexico, and so many other countries. We used to do it. We can't do it anymore. We take care of countries all over the world. We pay for their military. We pay for everything they have to pay. And then when you want to cut back a little bit, they get upset that you're not taking care of them any longer. But we have to take care of our people, and we're going to take care of our people first.
Okay, so he's actually making a separate case here, which is that people should pay their own way when it comes to their welfare and defense spending. Totally agree. 100%. That is absolutely true. Also, that has literally nothing to do with what the president of the United States did yesterday. It seems to be predicated. His giant tariff policy that he just dropped on the market unilaterally, probably unconstitutionally yesterday. And I'll get to that in a moment. It's predicated on a few false notions about the American economy. One is that the American economy has been a giant fail for the last 40 years. That is simply not true. This is a myth that is propagated by both parties. And I know, it's a fun myth. It's something people like to believe, is that yesterday was economically better than today. And then you look at all the stuff around you, and you look at the phone in your pocket, and you look at the computer before you, you look at the internet, you look at the fact you can literally order any product at any time from anywhere on earth, and it arrives at your doorstep in 2 days at a price you can afford. And you think to yourself, would I rather live in 1980, when the only person with a cell phone was Gordon Gekko on a beach holding a shoebox to his head? When central air conditioning was kind of a rarity? When the cars, if you were lucky, had electric windows? Okay, was that like better? Were things better? Just on an economic level. Forget about everything else. I can make a case about the spiritual level. You can make a case about the dissolution of the family. I agree with many of those cases. But we are talking here about economics. We're not talking about the life of the spirit within. We're talking about economics, which is the distribution of goods and services. So I need to start by showing you a few charts that show you that America, in fact, does not suck and has not sucked for several decades economically. Because this is a myth that all politicians like to tell. Okay, number one, there's this notion that American deindustrialization has been happening. That Americans have hollowed out all that manufacture. We are not actually manufacturing anymore in this country. That is not true. It is not true. In the mid-90s, the United States was producing, in real manufacturing value added, in 1997, we were producing $1.4 trillion. In 2025, we were producing $2.4 trillion. And it is an arithmetic increase. You can see the line on this chart. We are manufacturing more. Why aren't there more manufacturing jobs? The answer is technology. We're manufacturing more because we have better robots. And they're doing much of the work that people seem to have a very warm and fuzzy feeling about, but that they would never want to do themselves. I notice a lot of people, why can't I have a factory job just like 1955 Ford or something? Yes, I'm sure that you want it to be in a non-air-conditioned factory, riveting all day.
True. Nobody talks about this. Like, what are the jobs exactly that you're talking about bringing back? These are the great American jobs that people use. Like, it's a myth, but it's that myth. And again, he is right. Both sides propagate this. Remember back in the 1940s when one man could work a full-time job and they could have 2 cars and go to vacation at Disney World and have a huge house and their kids could go to college and he could do all of this while only earning 75 cents an hour, and it was just the best time for him. And everybody was like, there's no point in economic history where every single person in the U.S. or where more people in the U.S. were enjoying this life. It's just not true.
It just sounds like you. That's most Americans. That's your ideal job. No, it isn't. It isn't. Just like working in a coal mine isn't your ideal job either.
True!
Okay, here's another chart. We've been told the lie that the American middle class has been hollowed out by international trade. Here's what actually happened to the American middle class over the course of the last several decades. The American middle class stayed approximately the same size, shrank a little bit. Why did it shrink? Why did it shrink? Not because people became lower middle class or poor, but because a huge number of Americans went into the upper middle class. The number one change in the status of American families in terms of income from just before 1980 to about 2015 was a 16 percentage point increase in the upper middle class. In other words, people got richer. And by the way, everyone got richer, including the poor, because the stuff you can get as a poor person in America in 2025 is way the hell better than the stuff that you could get as a poor person in America in 1980. That's just a reality. How about wages? We keep hearing that wages are stagnant, that they've stagnated since 1979. Here, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is a chart. It shows you the average hourly earnings of production and non-supervisory employees. And it shows you what happened to wages between 1980 and 2025. And what you see is a steep increase from the 1990s and up, a very steep increase. Now, I know this cuts against the conventional political wisdom, which is the American economy sucks, and it's because everybody is cheating us. Now, one of the things that President Trump is predicating his tariff war upon is the idea that trade deficits are inherently bad. A trade deficit is where we import more stuff than we export in terms of value. Now, as I pointed out before, you have a trade deficit with literally every business that you do business with unless they're buying your product. So I have a trade deficit with my local Publix, a large trade deficit. They have bought pretty much nothing from me, and I bought tens of thousands of dollars over the years from my local Publix. Clearly, they are screwing me. Or maybe they're not, because I'm getting value for my dollar in the form of food and supplies. Or maybe I should go over to my Publix and just beat the living out of the general manager. I don't know, one of those two things. Trade deficits they're an accounting procedure, trade deficits. You label something in export and you label something in import. But trade itself is about mutual benefit where you wouldn't do the trade in a voluntary system. So the idea that every trade deficit, someone is getting screwed, is a zero-sum view of how economies work, and it's not true. As Thomas Sowell points out, the eminent economist, quote, if the goods and services available to the American people are greater as a result of international trade, then Americans are wealthier, not poorer, regardless of whether there is a deficit or a surplus in the international balance of trade. In fact, I can name
Didn't Ben side with Trump on tariffs, though? Why is he switching up now? Because Ben was part of the COPE squad of he's just doing this to start for a negotiating position. He was part of that.
Period in American history where there was a fairly large surplus in America's balance of trade. The entire Great Depression. Now, there were times in American history that were great, where we also had a surplus. There were times in American history that sucked, where we had a deficit, and times in American history that were great, where we had a deficit. As it turns out, trade deficits have pretty much nothing to do with the health of an economy. They don't tell you very much. In fact, the French economist, Frédéric Bastiat, who's really cutting about this stuff, writing in the 19th century, he said, look, if you're so worried about trade imbalances, then actually what you should do is you should sink ships filled with your own exports before they ever get to the other side. So if we're exporting oranges to Europe, and they're going to send us apples in return, the best way to ensure that no trade imbalance takes place is we should send our oranges out of the country, and we should sink the ship before it ever gets to Europe so they can't send us apples back. And we have a large export on our ledger and no imports. Great idea. The economy will be stronger. So a fundamental misunderstanding of trade deficits, and again, that's not balance of payments. It's a different thing. Balance of payments is about the flow of gold. We're no longer on a gold standard, but it's about currencies and all that. Trade deficits are a different thing. The reason I'm bringing up trade deficits is because this is how President Trump is calculating his Liberation Day tariffs. According to the Washington Post, President Trump said Wednesday he will impose a new 10% tariff on all imported goods, along with higher import taxes tailored for each of about 60 countries. His advisors say maintain the largest barriers against U.S. products and a sharp turn toward the kind of protectionism the United States abandoned nearly a century ago.
Do you think this might be a turning point with all the usual dick writers siding against Trump for once? We'll see. But the thing I've always said, and I'll maintain this because now I have a realist view of U.S. politics, at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to what people can actually see impacting them. And market stuff is definitely a thing that people can see, right? People can feel huge changes in the market. They'll see it in their stock portfolios. So this might be a thing that starts to move some people over. We'll see. Or maybe I'm coping.
So President Trump said that for decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike. This is not going to happen anymore. Okay, so let's take a look at the Liberation Day, quote-unquote, reciprocal tariffs. Okay, so here I have a chart. President Trump held it up, y'all, like a big chart. Like Wheel of Fortune. He held like a big chart that showed reciprocal tariffs. And what it said was, in one column, the names of the countries. In another column, tariffs charged to the United States, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. And then USA discounted reciprocal tariffs. So his idea is, here's the tariff rate that a country is charging us, and then we're going to take half that rate and charge it to them. There's only one problem. There are many problems. There's only one problem here. What is labeled the tariffs charged to the United States is not, in fact, the tariffs charged to the United States. It is not true. It is not true. And I looked at this and I thought, holy crap. The EU is charging us 39% tariff rates on all products.
That would be pretty fucking crazy, wouldn't it be?
Stuff there, and they're charging a 39% tariff. That's what this chart says. Japan is charging us 46% tariffs. Malaysia is charging us Cambodia is charging us 97% tariffs. And then I thought to myself, I said, well, that doesn't sound correct to me.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound right at all.
Kind of fucking insane.
That sounds totally wild.
Yeah.
I mean, that can't be true. And so I made the mistake of actually looking up some of these statistics. What are the actual average annual tariff rates that are charged on American goods by countries like, for example, Japan or Taiwan, which this chart says is charging us a 64% tariff rate. And it turns out there is zero correlation whatsoever. Those are not, in fact, the tariff rates that are being charged on American goods going into Taiwan or Japan or India or any of these other places.
It's a Grok ChatGPT formula for how to calculate what reciprocal tariffs should be.
It's just not right. Well, listen, I don't love these tariffs, as you may have noticed, but Doge continues to do some good things, like cut the fat from decades of bloated government spending and corruption. Pure Talk, the cell phone company I use for business every day, they're cut off.
Fuck you. And fuck your ads.
Can help end
no more for the conservative
deficit of that country. So where's that number coming from? And this is where the trade deficit comes in. It's coming from taking the trade deficit of that country and dividing it into the imports that the United States is taking in from that country, and then calling that a tariff rate. That has nothing to do with the tariff rate. Nothing at all. Zero things to do with the tariff rate. The reason, by the way, that we have a tariff... So according to this chart, for example, Madagascar is charging us 93% tariffs, and we ought to charge them 47% tariffs. Hey, that's what it says. That's what the thing says. There is only one problem with this. That is not remotely true. And if we have a trade deficit with Madagascar, then so the hell what? It's Madagascar.
Yeah.
The GDP per capita is $530 a year. Our trade deficit with Madagascar is a few $1 million. Is the idea we have to chisel out of the people of Madagascar
are destroying the United States, taking advantage of us, really?
8 days.
Extra dollars for American products, or we are getting screwed by the great and powerful people of Madagascar? Is that the idea here? It makes 0 sense. It
Days.
How do we know this? We have perfect proof. Yes,
8 more days.
99% of all goods coming into Israel had no tariff on them.
Oh, I understand now. Okay. I see now. Oh, no.
Them from the United States. That was something that Israel did in the 2000s because they used to have high tariffs. And what ended up happening is that Israelis...
God, I hope Netanyahu continues on this path. It would just be... Being anti-Semitic is just so much fun, bro. You can blame Jews for fucking everything. And the lefties will even champion you for it now. Hell yes.
Come to the United States, load up their bags with a bunch of American-made goods, and then take them back with them to Israel to avoid the tariffs. So Israel's got rid of all the tariffs. Yesterday, Israel announced 0 tariffs on any American goods. The Trump administration hit them with a 17% tariff anyway, claiming that they had a 33% tariff rate on American goods, which clearly is not true. Why? Because it turns out that we buy more stuff from the Israelis than the Israelis buy from us. Shocker. They're a smaller country. We're a giant market. Not a giant shock, as it turns out. So this is pretty crazy, because it turns out the trade deficit has nothing to do with the tariff rates. So we are punishing countries that have a low tariff rate with us. For example, like South Korea is listed on this chart as having a 50% tariff rate on us. The average tariff rate South Korea has on American goods, according to the World Trade Organization, is 0.79%. We have a free trade agreement with South Korea. It is listed on this chart as 50%. That's nonsense. It's not true. It just isn't true. And it leads to a 25% reciprocal tariff on all South Korean goods. Now, there are a number of reasons why this is a problem. Okay, whatever, who cares? Well, do we need other countries? So first of all, yes, we do. It turns out that the supply chains all across the planet are incredibly complex. And if you like the products that you have, at the quality that you have them, and the price that you have them, you're not going to get to keep them. You don't get to keep anybody who tells you that you can is telling you the same kind of falsehood that Barack Obama said when he said, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor.
Ooh,
you don't get to keep your Xbox at the same rate with the same quality. You don't. That's just not the way that these tariffs are going to work. So what exactly happens? Well, Tyler Cowen points out, quoting Scott Lincecum over at Cato, Trump's reciprocal tariffs impose hundreds of billions of dollars in new taxes on Americans without public or congressional input, because that's actually what happened. I have friends, for example, who import products to the United States and then sell them. Why? Because they can't get the product in the United States. So, for example, I have a friend who's in the jewelry business. And this friend in the jewelry business imports products that are not capable of being manufactured or found in the United States.
Wait a minute. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. See you next Tuesday or Wednesday.